And then what I can say is right up there is one of the worst experiences of my life happens. These things start rushing towards us, and I can see the anger on the one that was coming from me's face. I thought, I'm going to die here, and no one's going to know how I died, and that was what I was depressed about. But I had my light, and I shined my light, and then the moment I shined my headlight on it, it just disappeared. And so did John's, and it was like they were not there.
Hey, this episode is brought to you by merkmerch.com. Go ahead and get your Merkle Media apparel right there at merkmerch.com. Also check out merklefilms.com for all on-demand streaming needs, documentaries, docuseries coming very, very soon. We are expanding the platform, so go ahead and check it out, merklefilms.com. Now, today we have Adam Davies coming on the show, and Adam is a world explorer. He's worked with people like Josh Gates, and he doesn't live that far from the studio. So he finally came in, sat down with me, and talked about his world travels and one fateful night when he saw a portal open up in the middle of the woods and creatures come out and attack him and his friend. This happened for 2 nights straight. He comes on the show to talk about it today. So let's get to Adam right now. I'm going on my own adventure tomorrow, or not tomorrow, next week. I'm going to be going down to Georgia, and we're going to be going to a very undisclosed location. And it's a location that I actually had to sign an NDA to not release where it's at. And once I signed the NDA, I was given a debriefing, and the location has it's a very confined area. It's in the middle of the forest. Like there's nothing around. And it's called The Meadow. I've had this guy on the show before.
Yeah. I know who it is. Are you going with Greg? You're probably going with Greg Ogles. He said he was seeing you.
Okay, well, maybe
yeah. I know about this area.
Yeah,
because I probably go myself soon.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, not without me. I'll go down a second time.
Yeah. Well, basically, I know all about it. So I'm careful because we're recording. Yeah. But I'm going sooner, hopefully.
Awesome.
Yeah. So Greg is friendly with the guy who you are talking about.
Yeah, Trey.
Yeah, Trey. So
Trey's been on the show, and some of his team has been on the show.
I've met Kristen. She's really nice.
I haven't met her. Nice. I've met Jessica. She was here a few months ago. But I'm telling you, like, I when they debriefed me and the team, legit, they have this cube portal on video and their team walking in and just
disappearing.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got to go then. I'm fascinated. That'll be interesting. Be careful though, Tony. Hey.
Oh, I'm not going in. We're gonna kick Jack and push him through the portal. See you, buddy.
You hear this echo as he goes down. Well, I was saying to Jack just then. I said, Teresa is a massive fan of the show. In fact,
your wife.
Yeah. In fact, every time she's in the bath, all I hear is your voice. And I really don't know what to make of that, Tony.
It's getting warm in here. Oh, man. I wish this table was wider right now. Oh, Adam Davies, how are you, man?
I'm very well, yeah. We are now neighbors in Maryville.
Yeah.
So I'm only 20 minutes down the road from you.
Yeah. What a wild thing, huh?
Yeah. And Jack used to live right next to me. Now, like, not literally in the same apartment or room or bed or anything.
Sharing a basement.
Yeah. We shared a basement together, and
you kept him in the basement.
We hacked the internet, and now look at him, the job of his dream.
I know. I'm hoping that he feels that way. I mean, before he moved here, he was killing bugs. So, I mean, it's at least a step up, I'd imagine.
I love the fact that he can say nothing right now without giving him a hard time.
Technically, he can, but he's under strict orders of losing his job. So, if he wants to go back to killing bugs, you will speak when asked to speak.
Good. Nothing like being a benevolent dictator.
Right. That's funny because they'll be like, what happened to freedom of speech in the comments section? Sometimes I'm like, it's my house. Like, I'm not going to let you come in my house and insult me. Like, go create your own channel and be a jerk there.
Yeah, exactly. People think they can insult you and it's okay.
Yeah, it's like, oh, freedom of speech. Yeah, it's freedom of speech. And I'm free to delete your comment and delete you off the channel too.
Goodbye, dude.
Yeah. Not interested. Well, I mean, it's freedom of speech. I should be allowed to smack you. No, not really. So
no, you can express your opinion in a respectful manner.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with somebody challenging me.
Yeah.
I can say, oh yeah, I don't agree with what you said. Great. Okay, let's talk about it.
Yep.
I'm not, I'm not here to evangelize people.
Yeah.
I don't care whether you have the same point of view as me. Respectfully, I don't care.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in your point of view. But if it starts with, you're a dick, I'm not going to carry on reading.
Next. Absolutely. So I'm glad you're here. And we have been talking about this for about a year now. I mean, I think you and I have been talking about you coming in here since before we shared the stage at Smoky Mountain Bigfoot, like two conferences ago.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm glad it's finally happening. But for the audience sake and stuff, I mean, why don't we start off with the foundation of this house? Where did this all start? Because if they haven't noticed, you're not originally from the South.
I don't know about that.
That's not too bad, actually. That's actually not too bad. That's not too bad.
I can't believe I did that. Like every Southerner listening to the show be going, oh my gosh, did he actually do that? Fried chicken. No, that's the last thing I'm going to do. All right. So, I'm from England. Do you want me to tell you my background?
Yeah. How did you wind up in this field of adventure, cryptozoology? I mean, you're a world traveler looking for species and what I call monsters that aren't supposed to exist. But like, obviously, like you weren't always that. Like, how did you wind up getting to that point? And then how'd you wind up here in Tennessee?
Okay, so exploration always interested me since I was a kid. But there's a couple of formative things when I think back on it that really made me drive that way. The first thing is I had a sister that died of neuroblastoma, which is a form of cancer, when we were both very young. I was very close to her. But that from an early age taught me that you never know when you're going to go. Yeah. Even then I was conscious of it. So I thought I didn't want to waste life. I was very much not about wasting life. It was about living life as much as I could, and doing all of those things. And then a couple of years later, I had an accident and I was hit by a cop's son who was driving a motorbike down the sidewalk, round a corner. Yeah. He obviously got booked for it, but it broke my leg in several places. And I was told I'd never walk again.
Jeez.
And I felt very sorry for my poor parents because they'd already had a child die. And then they had this other child who they thought would be...
How old were you?
Disabled. I was nearly 9.
Wow.
So I decided that what I'd do was I was very determined. So I'm trying to sort of get you to understand the psychology of where I was coming from in the background. So I went really hard on the crutches, really trained, and I became a swimmer. And that was my sport. And within 12 months, my city was Manchester, which is a big city. I was my city champion for my age group, from not being able to walk to doing that. And it was the swimming that was the rehabilitation. So I was very determined. So you have that, in the early days, you have that sort of, well, this is how life was. And then you have that determination. And I always had a massive love of nature and the wilderness and all of that. And I was always out whenever I could, out hiking, and the moors near on the back of it. I sort of lived sort of in my Derbyshire area is where a lot of my hiking in the Peak District was. And I was always there whenever I could be. And then I did survival courses, including courses with the Special Forces, ex-Special Forces members, the British SAS, because I was doing stuff in the territorials. And then I just went out there. So it was a gradual progression. And one of the hardest things I did first was the Congo, looking for evidence of the Makili Mamembe, which is the Congo dinosaur.
Wow.
I was one of the first people to cross the Lakula Basin. And all sorts of things happened, from seeing gorillas to getting shot at, everything else. So I went, and the Lakula Basin was then described by Colonel Don Blashford Snell as hell on earth. And he was like, you're insane crossing it. You shouldn't do it. But I did. So I went, so I've always been after what I've been always after is adventure. Yeah. So from a distillation point of view, I was determined and I had those skills, but I was also very keen on adventure and nature. So looking for evidence of unknown species was a natural progression for me. I was always interested in things like that and finding answers to them. So for me, though, all of the media stuff happened by accident. It wasn't planned. I wasn't there to, as I say, evangelize others. Yeah. I want you to enjoy my stuff, but, you know, if you aggressively tell me what your point of view is, not that you would, but, you know, I'm just going to say, well, I'm just not interested in it, you know, like my stuff or don't like my stuff, that's cool. But I don't care what you think, in a nice way. I was about adventure, and then I was about evidence if I could possibly find it. Yeah. So that was where I was.
Man, that's wild.
And you know, the TV stuff kind of happened by accident. So yeah.
Hey guys, if you want more shows on a weekly basis, just become a member right here on YouTube. Hit the join button below or the link in the description. And if you want to be on the show, go ahead and shoot me an email, contact@theconfessionalspodcast.com. That's contact@theconfessionalspodcast.com. Man, all right, so I want to know how the TV stuff happened, because I mean, like, I see people on TV, and I think a lot of people are in this point of view where they feel like, you know, there's some kind of blueprint path to getting there, and we got some iced coffee in here. What'd you call this?
I don't know what it's called. Oh, caramel frappe. Look at that.
Yeah, I know, but like, what'd you call it before? That they only call it in England.
Oh, I can't remember. Some like gibberish I was speaking early in the morning.
Yeah.
I hadn't had coffee, so I can't tell you. You know?
Okay.
I'm going to like hype up a few ramps after this.
That's fine.
It looks fancy.
Teresa brought you some good stuff.
Yeah, she brought me some fancy coffee.
But I mean, I think people like, they see people on TV and they assume, oh, well, they got an agent. How do you get an agent? I don't know. Like there's no blueprint that is publicly known, I imagine, on how to get a TV. Like, how did it happen for you?
Well, I think there's an alternative there in the sense that, if you are an actor, you can get on these shows. Sure. And people like Josh Gates is well known. He was an actor before.
Was he really? I didn't know that.
He was an actor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think so. He was an actor.
Okay.
And then obviously he got the shows and now he develops them. I mean, I was on his show in Nepal, the Yeti show. So
wait. Was that the episode they like chased the creature and got the footprint?
I found a footprint of a Yeti on the Nepal show. I found one. When we were out there.
With Josh Gates?
With Josh Gates,
and they had the press conference and everything?
No, that was earlier. That was on a different show.
Oh, okay.
He was on a different show, and he was found by Thule. The print was found by Thule. Okay. He was a tracker there. Obviously, they said it was Josh's, but he was found by Thule. Gotcha. And then later on and he says that now. He doesn't say it wasn't found by Thule. It's not some big cover-up.
Sure. Yeah.
But now... in the second show, when we went back to Nepal, or I went back to Nepal for Expedition Unknown, the first show was Destination Truth. When I went back for Expedition Unknown, I found a print on that show.
Wow.
So yeah, so that happened. So going back to your question though, we can talk about that later.
Yeah, for sure.
Going back to your question. So some people will do it through the acting route, and then all of that. Some people it will happen to by accident. In the same way as like you're now famous with your show. You wanted a podcast, but you didn't believe it would grow exponentially.
No,
and
I'd still be driving truck.
Well, exactly. and you know, and obviously those blessings have come to you and I'm glad for you.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's opportunity, sometimes it's chance. So with me, I'd done an expedition to Norway and we found evidence of something called the cellular serpent, which I actually saw. And I can talk about why it's important evidence if you want. Then I was going to the Congo and the media were kind of interested in, he's going to the Congo because it was pretty hardcore. Like, who is this guy? So they picked that up. And then when I went to Sumatra looking for evidence of the orang pendek. We went out and I was leading that expedition and one of the Indonesian, found a print. John found a print and that was analyzed not just by Jeff Meldrum, who I really like a lot, nice guy, but also by David Chivers, who was then the world's leading primatologist, and he came to the conclusion it was an unknown primate. So I picked up a bit of media traction, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So people were talking about me. So then National Geographic said, well, we've got this show, we'd love to do the orang pendek. Yeah, so I went on that. And then they said, where are you going next? Because they had this series at the time. And I said, I'm going to Mongolia to look for evidence there. And they said, do you mind if we come with you? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I like did a bit with them. And then I spent the rest of weeks in a Jeep, like going around Mongolia, like trying to find our way back from all across the size of Western Europe.
Jeez.
So we did that. And then, other things happened. Like, I'd love to do it full time as a series, because it gives me time to do this, or like this. Like, it gives you time to do your passion, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I can't say I've ever had that. I've always had to work in the day job. But I've had some experiences where I've saved up and traveled all over the world and done proper explorations in different parts of the world. And the media has been a part of it. It's not the reason why I do it, and I'd still do it tomorrow. The media's a bonus.
Yeah.
But that's it. So it happened by accident.
Well, if National Geographic came to me and said, where are you going next? Even if I didn't have any plans of going anywhere next, I'd be like, South Africa. I'm going to Costa Rica. I hear you have pockets that are pretty deep.
Well, you'd be struggling there. They'd find you out. Because obviously, are you going to South Africa or Costa Rica? Which are you going to?
That's true. Yeah. That's true.
You'd be like, you have an honest face, Tony.
Yeah.
You don't ever play poker with me. You'll be poor.
I don't play poker for a reason. So kind of going back to what you had mentioned before with the Congo, I had I had planned on talking about this earlier, but let's just get into it now. Actually, the Congo trip that you went on, was that the first expedition that you set out on?
It was a second. I did the one to Norway.
Okay.
First of all, and I went to Loch Ness as well. So I did some, but it was the first.
Is it real?
Huh?
Is it real?
Do you want me to answer that in like 10-second soundbite?
Yeah. So I'm imagining it's not.
It's a giant eel.
So it is something.
It is something.
Okay.
But it's not. It's not like a plesiosaur. That's my opinion.
Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, let's think about the term monster. We're going to get sidetracked like we both have ADHD.
It's going to.
No, that's just going to be the way it is.
Strap up, people. It's going to be a ride.
So with Selyord, let me contrast the two. And I don't mind being wrong. Yeah, okay, Loch Ness monster people, you can say, oh, okay, good. All right, let's not be over intense about it. That's all. Now, with the Selyord serpent, which is Norway's equivalent, again, I do a lot of research before I go to these places. And it interested me because they had a historical pedigree. It had a good ecosystem, and it had resources which I could tap into to use to my own investigation. So all of those things were prevalent. I mean, most of the time I've been doing these things on my own time and money. Yeah. So I'm not, if like Jack said, there's a pink monster running around Maryville with a horn on his head. I'm not.
Well, that's relatively free. I mean, you live here, so.
Well, I'm not going to even spend my days off looking for it.
Yeah.
You know how like Jack comes up with all this crazy BS? We just have to roll with it sometimes.
Jack always.
Sorry for him, but never mind. Anyway, so the Selyord serpent, Jack's like, why are you giving me a hard time, dude? but the Selyord serpent, what I did was they have the lake and I cross-referenced it with most recent sightings, and on top, and I layered it, and I looked at the deepest and the shallowest areas, and we got experts in like limnologist reports, analyzed fish, and then I had my teams, rather than powerboating along the lake, I got them to learn wakes and what they might mean, and get used to getting your eye in for lake ripples and all of that lot. And most of the time it was boring, very, very boring, just sat on a lake looking at a ripple. It's not exciting.
Yeah.
It's like, and nothing would happen. But then I did see it, me and one of the guys on the expedition as well. We saw it, and it moved through the water, and it had barbs on the back of its body, which interestingly I looked at. There were 17th century they correlated with the 17th century woodcut. It looked like a classic woodcut of a serpent. It was amazing. I was like, we need to get after it. And it was like my Captain Ahab moment on my little boat chasing the monsters. That was awesome. I was hooked. And you saw these barbs, and you saw the gap, the circular back. Why can I make this assertion with some confidence? Why can I say with some confidence that was what it was? Because we had dropped hydrophones. Now, hydrophones, sonar in those days, you could see an object moving through the water. So I could say, okay, Jack's in a great big bath or a swimming pool. We can see his weighted rubber duck moving through the water, but we can't see that it's what its shape is exactly. We know it's large. With a hydrophone, you can check out the emissions that are made by a creature. So basically, we can analyze us two talking underwater, and we can say, okay, that's Tony Merkel and Adam Davies. We can tell. Now, what happened was those emissions were sent to the Marine Research Institute in Bergen. On a blind panel, Dr. Soldal there got some of the world's experts on that. And she just said, what is this? And then they came back, we're astonished to say it's an unknown species. Now, if that had been the Loch Ness Monster, you'd be wearing an Adam Davies t-shirt even to this day. But it's like Norway's. It's like, okay, dude, it's like being like just the best at like the worst musical instrument anyway. Oh no, we don't want the guy with a piccolo on. Let's get that violinist. She looks so intense. You see where I'm going? So, but I did see that, and that was remarkable. So it contrasts with the Loch Ness Monster. We use the same equipment there, and I could hear the fish. Loch Ness is a poor ecosystem. It doesn't have a lot of. So what you have to consider as a starting point is not just the sightings, but does the ecosystem have enough food basically to sustain a large body of creatures? And so you can fairly soon, with doing the math, dismiss the plesiosaur. It's just not viable given the size it would be in the state. But fishermen in Foyers have reported. Foyers is one creepy place.
Where is it?
Foyers is on the other side of Loch Ness.
Okay.
And that's a little town. And have you ever seen those like 1950s, 1960s black and white horror movies? Those cheesy ones? Yeah. Well, I'm driving over there with a friend of mine called Keith, because we were kind of interested, because on the other side is Jimmy Page's house. And he did all that, and Aleister Crowley, all that occult, all the black magic stuff. Aleister Crowley used to own it. And then Jimmy Page.
So that's right there?
That's right there. Yeah. It was burnt down recently, but they think allegedly maybe by local people because of it, but it's been restored. But it's always known. Anyway, so we're driving, it's nighttime. We're at Loch Ness. We're driving along, and we're going to Jimmy Page's house. And as we're driving along near Foyers, there's a cemetery, and this fog and mist comes right down across the cemetery. And I'm like, man, that is the ultimate black and white movie scene. I wish. Yeah. So it's a creepy place for us. But they have found very large eels there. They found eels that have the thickness almost of a man's waist, So. And not everybody's making it up. Sometimes skeptics say, oh, they're making it all up. They just want attention. Well, we know that's wrong. But so we have to think, what is it? Not everything can be thought of as a log. So not everything can. The classic thing is a log coming to the surface. I remember seeing this account by this Benedictine monk, because there used to be a monastery, castle there, and he was like saying, well, I saw it move about in the water, that undulating motion. It's like the dude isn't in it for money or attention. He's not making it up. He saw a creature. So the importance is, now let's say he saw a creature, what type of creature it was, and I think it's an eel, but I want to be wrong. I want to say, I have no ego about this stuff. If someone comes along and says, actually, the Loch Ness Monster isn't a big eel, Adam, you were wrong, I'd be like, hoorah, I want you to. But the reason I talked about the Loch Ness, about the cellular serpent, is some serpents really are real, and we've got credible science behind that. And I'm interested in established credible science. I am. I've always been about adventure and experience, because I was doing it on my own time and money. But I don't think there's anything wrong with pursuing science. I think that's a good thing. And if we can establish it, it helps. So there we are.
Man.
So there's your answer.
Well, I think that probably the first time that I ever got really involved in like fantasizing about creatures that shouldn't exist that are out there when I was a kid was the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that a plausible explanation for this thing to exist there was that there was caves along the side of the loch, and it could go in there, and it could come up to the surface inside the caves to breathe, and then go back out into the loch. Is the cave theory even something that you've ever come across?
Yeah, and that is possible. It's not impossible.
Mm.
The ecosystem is poor in the Loch Ness, as I've mentioned before. So you have to start with that. So you have to consider what type of creature could survive that ecosystem, and be viable.
Sure.
Now, are there caves? Loch Ness is an immensely deep body of water. I think every person on Earth could fit inside Loch Ness, were it to be thinking right now.
Really?
Yeah. It's a very deep loch lake. So, but it's very cold. I mean, the species there are predominantly they're getting towards the Arctic area in terms of species and fish. Now, there are places and cracks and caverns in there. There's also, which I find more interesting, really, is could there be places where it could go to out into the ocean? So could they come in to spawn, if you like, or something like that, a creature come in to spawn? And I think, there's obviously canals there, and that's interesting. My favorite loch, though, isn't Loch Ness, it's Loch Morar. It's got that crystal clear water. There's stories about a creature there for many years. If I go back and look in Scotland, I'm going to go to Loch Morar.
You were just in England, but you weren't on a journey. I think you were at a speaking engagement, right? You did something.
No, I went to see my family.
Oh, family.
I was family and friends, and I did do a little bit. I'm writing I write novels as well as expedition books.
Yeah.
Well, there's a thing I wanted to explore down there. I went to these caves, which I always slept in. When you talk about ghosts, I said, got an interest in ghosts. So I told you I used to do a lot of training in the Peak District, and my mum, and we're going to loads of tangents, but if you're
it's fine. I'm just talking about
So in Buxton was a Roman town, and it has this remarkable history about it being a spa town. And I wanted to take Teresa down to the cave area because me and Anthony, my friend, who I did a lot of the expedition backup with, we used to hike out, and then we'd do a lot of wild camping, and we're wild camped in this cave, which has obviously been around from past prehistoric times, and they found evidence of Roman evidence in it and everything else. And a couple of things happened. We slept in this cave many times, but a couple of things happened which were interesting, and for the purposes of this show, there was one time we slept in there, and it's down a valley called Deepdale. And there was one time we slept in there, and we heard this. It was light, there's nobody around. To get in and out of this valley, it's very rocky. You can't do it without a light. It's impossible to do it without a light. Even in the day, it's hard work to get down. It's like a scree slope and stuff like that. And Teresa will tell you she fell over 4 times and hated it when I took her. So we go into this cave. We was chilling out in this cave, and we heard this wild Gregorian chanting.
Really?
So we're lying down we're lying down in the cave. We're lying down, and we were just ready to go to sleep because we'd obviously hiked and a lot of physical stuff. Lying down on a rock cave isn't particularly comfy, but when you're really tired, you'll lie down on anything. So I lie down, and then all of a sudden we heard this, and it carried on, and the whole cave was resonating. And we were like, dude, that is the wildest thing. And he was like, can you believe? So I just thought, I've just written a story about conspiracy theories and one about the moon-eyed people. I'm getting the conspiracy theories. I'm going to do the editing on that very shortly. But I thought this would be a great story. And if you look into the background of this place, this is like a place where hundreds of years ago, people used to think fairies. They're actually called Hobb's Cave, and Hob was a goblin, yeah? And so there's all this history. I'm not saying there's goblins and fairies running around before everyone going, hey, Davis said there were fairies in Buxton.
But maybe.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. Maybe for you, Tony. You can take that step.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
But I did. But it's true that this Gregorian chanting did happen to me. And there's no good explanation for it. There's nobody around. The cave has a back, yeah? There's no people there. There's no houses there. It's like 1 a.m. or whatever when this happened. It was a cool thing. So I thought, I'm going to write a story based on all of that stuff. So I'm going to start that like tomorrow after I get back from the mountains.
That's cool. I'm just going to write a book tomorrow. I'll be fine.
Well, I'll start it.
Fine, you know.
I'm not going to finish it, but I'll start
there was a guy, him and his brother came in here, John and AJ, John from the 21 CD podcast. And it's I think it was about a month or two ago, they were in here. And John and AJ went to Iceland years ago, and they swear they had interactions with elves one night in Iceland. And so when it comes to fairies, not a far stretch of imagination for me, sir.
Well, that's fair enough if you want to believe that. Well, in Iceland, over half the population believe in elves and fairies.
Yeah.
It's a massive cultural thing. I'm planning on going to Iceland in the next 18 months or so.
For real?
Yeah.
Have you ever been?
No. And I want to go to the remoter parts of it. We were talking about it just the other day. So I want to do some hiking and go all around there and see what happens.
Me and my buddies that we do all this with and stuff, Iceland has been a topic of conversation.
It's pretty easy to get to as well.
Is it?
From where we live. Yeah. We'll talk about it another time.
Yeah,
we'll
for sure.
But you find it interesting. Let me just turn the sound off on that.
That's fine.
I didn't know that was sound was on that.
You're ruining the show, man. You're ruining the show.
Hey, Jack, are you okay working with this dude? He's very precious, I'm told.
The pressure is on. The pressure is on. I think that Iceland would be a fun adventure. It really would be fun.
Oh, yeah, it'd be great to do. I want to do it. I want to go. Maybe we can think about a Merkel Media film in Iceland.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe we can
think about that.
Yeah.
So that was a cool experience. So what I've always done is my expeditions. Let's sort of, because I don't often talk about the paranormal stuff I do. My expeditions looking for unknown species have been primarily about gathering scientific evidence and having adventure. The ghost stuff has just been about kicking it out and having a good time. So, and that's happened. I've got some cool ghost stories, but I never talk about them.
So the ghost stuff, is that something that like you stumble into with an experience, or you're like, we're out here hunting, the orang pendek. Let's go do a ghost hunt real quick.
No, it's separate.
Yeah,
completely separate things. I mean, I focus on looking for the species and getting the evidence and working hard.
Yeah,
if I'm going to the orang pendek thing. The ghost thing's a lot easier to do, isn't it? I mean, you ramble up with a bit of equipment to an old spooky mansion and it's Scooby-Doo time.
Yeah, you got a roof, you got walls.
Doobie-doo. Yeah, it's easy. It's easier. Yeah. But
I think there's like a whole world of paranormal investigators who are like, how dare you say that? It's easy.
They're saying, no. Look, dude, I know it's fun and I know it's extremely hard sometimes, but it ain't going to the Congo. That's what I'm pointing out to you.
That's
okay?
true.
Okay. Before anyone goes, I've got an EG to 469 and this is a piece of... Anyway, let me tell you, I'm going to tell you another cool ghost story if I've got a chance. There's two other really cool ghost stories.
Let's keep the mic closer.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there we go. There's two other really cool ghost stories I want to tell you. So the first one is when I was in Michigan. And I want you to know I've had more than one girlfriend. So this is with a previous relationship. She's not there.
She's not here right now, so
all proud until she listens to this show on December the 3rd. But she knows the story. We're cool.
Yeah.
So I was in Michigan. I'd spoken at their conference. They did a Bigfoot. Every now and again, I'll speak at conferences. I only do about 3 or 4 a year because in my free time, I spend most of my time researching. But it's kind of, if I really want to do it and I can, then I will. Yeah. But I keep a limit on it. I'm not going to tour around the country doing 20 odd conferences. Yeah. It's not my bag. So I did this one. And one of the reasons I was interested in doing it is they said afterwards, we're going to do this investigation up in the Upper Peninsula. And I was like, great. And I want to go to the Upper Peninsula. I'm still exploring. I'm in the US, but there are plenty of good places to explore in the US that I haven't been to. I'm going to go there. Yeah. So great. So we go. did the conference. And after I had a girlfriend who was really into researching the paranormal. And they did this thing called, I think it's called the Gansfield experiment, where you put headphones on and you listen out for noises and sounds of people and all.
Like coming through a voice box?
Yeah, like that. And I seemed to make a connection with this like military sounding guy or whatever. But there's also kids in the area that, you know, and there were basically 2 houses we were staying in and there was nothing else, just to set the scene. So we did that. And we'd done it, I think we did it on 2 occasions. One's at the beginning of the trip and one at the end. And I'd felt a bit like something a little bit uncomfortable when I was downstairs on my own, because we slept initially downstairs and I felt like something was sitting on the bed. Now, I worked as a volunteer for a year in the Whaley House in San Diego, the ghost place. And only on a couple of occasions did I see something I thought was really strange, but I could always feel when spirits were around. I learned how to feel when they were around. And what I felt was, the easiest way to equate it, you know, when you're on a roller coaster.
Never been.
Have you never been on a roller coaster?
Refuse. I refuse to take my life and put it in the hands of a roller coaster. Not happening.
All right, let's use another analogy. All right, so
I can imagine though.
No. Well, say for example, you were excited about something, but also a little bit nervous, you know, and you get those butterflies in your stomach.
First time I went hunting for Dogman.
Okay, well that then. Okay, so you have that feeling. So I get that feeling. So that's how I feel like when they're around. And I felt this. And I also felt like a weight on the edge of the bed. Anyway, everybody else goes home or they're out doing an investigation, depending on who they were. And we went to bed, me and my then girlfriend. And we're sleeping in like a loft. And there's some stairs up to the loft. And we lie down. And then about half an hour later, she's snoring a little bit. I'm going to say a little bit in case she listens to this.
Leave that
in. Anyway, you hear this. I can't copy the thing properly, but you hear this. Help me!
Wow.
Help me! Like voice, like rasping voice. And I'm like, I sit up and I'm like, what's that? Yeah. And it carries on, but it was weird. It didn't sound like a human voice or somebody copying a human voice. It sounded like bizarre. And then I heard this. And I sat up and I thought, I'm not going to go down those stairs because the angle of the stairs, this is where I'm telling you about the loft, was I thought this thing could like grab my legs or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It could like grab my leg because I had to go down that way. I thought, I'm not going to be trapped by that thing. And I was like, whatever that is. Anyway, it goes away after a minute or two. And I'm like, oh, good.
Good, I'm safe now.
Things gone. Yeah. I was just relieved a bit at that stage. It's like, this, and then like 5 or 10 minutes later, I can't remember exactly, but a few minutes, because I wasn't timing it. A few minutes later, the thing comes back. I'm like, oh, and it's like, hurt me. So I wake her up. Yeah. I'm like, I wake her up. So let's just call her Betsy for the purposes of this. That's not a real name.
Yeah.
Betsy. Wake up. And she wakes up. And I said, can you hear that? And she's like, yeah, I can. And then her eyes go like that. And she just falls down back to sleep.
What?
Yeah. And I'm like, and she's like lightly snoring again. And I'm like, and I'm trying to wake her up. I'm like, and she's like not moving. And this thing's kicking off going, help me. And I'm like, oh, this isn't good. It's just how am I going to win? How am I going to win in this situation? Because like the monster's downstairs and the snoring was almost as bad. No, the monster was downstairs. And it eventually goes away, and I thought, I said out loud, I said, I'm not going to go downstairs, dude. You're going to grab my legs or something.
Yeah.
So anyway, it goes away eventually. I thought, what can I do? What can I do for it? So I thought I'd pray for it, you know?
Okay.
So I prayed for it and then, you know, wished it well and all of that lot. It felt like a male energy, like that same energy as before. But the story does not end there. Anyway, a few weeks later, David, who'd like booked all of this, he's a lovely guy. He booked all of this and organized the place to stay and everything. He's like, you're not going to believe it. He said, like, a couple of weeks ago, he phoned me a couple of weeks later. He said, I remember I told you there were 2 houses nearby.
Mm.
He said, the guy who owned the other house, his mother came over and to stay. And, you know, there was a lot of history of schoolhouses and all that lot. And we had a desk, which had been used in the experiment. And she said to the guy who owned the house, said, you've got to stop those kids playing out at 1 or 2 in the morning by the fence. And he's like, what kids? He's like, yeah, those kids who were like white kids running around at 1 till 3 a.m. in the morning by the fence.
Jeez.
Yeah, ghostly.
Jeez.
All right, and the last ghostly story, because I'm going to do things in a line, yes? The last ghostly story, because I do these investigations. I go up, I went to that Thomas house recently, you know, up in Northern Tennessee. That's a creepy place. But the last one I think that really stands out, because I'm thinking of all the stories I've ever been involved in with ghosts, what really stands out. You know, like off camera, he's like really bossing me around, like, getting in that microphone.
I'm like, get in front of the microphone.
He's jolly, but he's really hurting my shin by kicking it.
No, not say that. I almost said something that probably wouldn't be YouTube friendly. So
you gave me the YouTube.
I know
did really well. I gave you. I sweared in the entire time I've been here.
Congratulations!
Yeah, I feel big about that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So Teresa and I, when I got here, I've lived in Tennessee for a couple of years.
Mm.
So I got here, like, it was just before Christmas 2 years ago, just before Christmas.
Okay.
The stork brought me and dropped me off here.
Yeah.
And then in February, and we were friends then, we were like in a relationship. But in February, we decided, she said, we're going to go to West Virginia and like book a trip. I was thinking about it. I thought, great. Do some Bigfoot research and all that, like take my trail cameras, blah when I'm there, you know, the sort of stuff I'm always doing. Because you know I'm out in the mountains every week here because we live so near the mountains.
Yeah.
The mountains are 20 minutes up the road from where we are now.
It's amazing.
I love it, and I know you love it. You've got chickens and everything now.
Oh yeah, I got the chickens, and you know the pigs. They're in the freezer now, but you know I still got
cold.
Very cold, very cold. Burr. But yeah, I know.
Just do that burr again, pig burr.
I will not.
Jack, capture that pig burr.
So, but no, I love it here, man. Like,
yeah, it's beautiful.
I turn out of my house and I'm looking at the Smoky Mountains. It's just amazing.
No, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So we decided to go to West Virginia, and we were staying in this place. I'm not going to say where it is because I'm going to go back there, and I don't want anyone screwing it up with their ZigX 59 megabolt kit because it's very cool. So we decided we'd go there, and we stay in this house. And straight away in the back bedroom, I had that feeling. You know, that feeling I talked to you about, that butterfly, etc. feeling. Just didn't feel right. And it wasn't like it was bothering us. But I remember I got used to feeling these feelings from the Whaley house after a year being there. I got used to this. I don't think I would have got it otherwise. And I said, you know, there's something in this room. There's something in this room. I thought, and on the last night, I brought all my trail cameras down. I thought, why don't I just stick up a trail camera? You know, what have I got to lose by sticking up a trail camera? And on that trail camera, when I got back, there was a face. And it was a face of a dude. And you could see he's in some sort of uniform or something. I think I'll put this picture in my book, or in my next book when I write, my next expedition book when I write it. But you could see that. So you have two possible explanations for this. Let's be objective about it. And then I'll come on to the last bit of the story. So you have either, and it was at night. Now, I was sleeping in the house with Teresa also. Teresa's got a pit bull dog who was also there. And the doors are locked. There's no other way in. The doors are locked. So you would have had this. So it's either some sort of spirit thing, or there's somebody who's crept in to the house, not stolen anything, got past the 2 locked doors and the pit bull, opened this door, had himself pose for a picture on the trail cam, and then left. So why would you do that? And is that even likely? That's incredible in itself.
Yeah.
So if you're objective about it, you have 2 incredible possibilities. There's no other possibilities. This trail camera's put up the night before we leave. The doors are locked, yeah? There's nothing else. Where the story has an even bigger twist is afterwards, Teresa contacted the woman who owned the place. And she said, we've got this photo of this dude. And she said, well, it could be. She looked at the photo we sent her. She was a little bit equivocal, so I want to state that. But she said, well, it could well be I think it was cousin. He died in the Vietnam War when he was 19, and that was the place he grew up and he loved. I've actually got goosebumps saying that story.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. So that was a paranormal experience you had in the midst of doing the Bigfoot research in undisclosed location. But how did you get into the Bigfoot side of things? Is that something that I mean, you're in England, so I mean, I think now there's people. Oh, what was her name? I had her on the show years ago. There's a woman in England who has been collecting reports of Bigfoot in England. And it's very interesting because that typically is thought to not be possible.
Well, if you were thinking about Bigfoot as a undiscovered primate per se, it would not be possible, I don't think, because England is a small country. It's not, and it's got, although there is woodland, apart from, I think, when you start to go towards Scotland, which is obviously another country, but part of Great Britain, you do have vast areas of where there's very few people. But if you talk about England, a lot of these alleged reports are in areas which are not far from being densely populated, and there's not the space. And quite simply, our ancestors, if there was another species, they would have either killed them or bred with them. That's the way it is. And I've seen great apes in the wild. I've seen gorillas, orangs, all those sort of things. So I've seen them on places. Now, if there's something that exists in Britain, it would have to have some sort of special qualities, which I'm not yet physically aware of. Yeah, I'm not dismissing it because it's interesting, and I've done research in Britain, and with people who've said they've seen things. So don't think for a minute that I'm adopting a dismissive approach. Yeah. I'm not. I'm adopting a trying to understand approach based on our current knowledge. Yeah, and taking it from there. So with Bigfoot, it was real simple. I'd always decided not to research Bigfoot for many years. And there were 2 main reasons for that. The first reason was I wanted to do as many hardcore things as I could while I was still physically capable of it. So, we're climbing mountains, not like I didn't climb mountains with Josh's thing, I hiked. But, like with the Abominable Snowman thing I did with Monster Quest with the Yeti, that was mountaineering. With the Congo, it's incredibly physically demanding. The Royal Marine I was with was cut to pieces and exhausted by the end of it. And that's SBS. That's like top tier. You have to be you don't have to be super fit to do all of these things, but you have to be reasonably fit and reasonably determined. I thought I want to do them while I'm physically capable. And the second thing, because you never know,
Yeah.
And the second thing was, I always thought the whole Bigfoot field with American Bigfoot was a minefield. It was an absolute minefield. It's like, where do I go with this? There's all these different groups. There's all these different people. What value can I add? And this is confusing. So I kept away from it a bit deliberately. And then I was with Jeff Meldrum, Dr. Meldrum, in China, looking for the Yeren. And I was always interested in making a film. I pitched the idea of a film on that to Monster Quest, to Doug Hychak. He was like, yeah, I'm good with that. We liked your Sumatran thing, but will you do something else for us? And I was like, yeah, it's a win-win situation, Yeah, and so we want you to do either Nepal or the Congo. And I've been to the Congo twice at that stage. And I said, no, I'll do Nepal because then I'd never been. Well, we did the China thing, and I love the China story because with the China story, there were, BC stories about a wild man living in an area of China, Hubei. And I just thought that's a great place to go. It'd be a great story. And it was a good story. And all sorts of, well, there was prints there which were really weird, which led to a scientific collaboration between the Natural History Museum of Beijing, China, and us.
Really?
Yeah, America. Yeah. It was a great piece of like a scientific note talking about the similarities between the print there. Monster Quest, they should have probably made more of that kind of thing. It's a big deal. But while I was in Beijing, before we went out, I said to Dr. Meldrum, I said, well, tell me about this Patterson-Gimlin thing, tell me about it. It's obviously the most famous thing on Bigfoot. So he went through it, and described it frame by frame as to why it was interesting and important. And I thought, well, I'm going to give Bigfoot a go. So there we are.
That's how it starts.
I thought I'll give it a go and I'll start. And, I'll start and I'll think of places to go and think how I'm going to work it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, so you mentioned earlier about the prints on this most recent, or not most recent journey, but in China. But you mentioned that you got prints with Josh as well.
Yeah, in Nepal.
Oh, yeah. So this is the same trip.
No, it's different.
Oh, okay.
So let me break it down.
Yeah.
So
I've never left the country except for once to go to Niagara Falls. So I'm not the world traveler.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Well, I think what I'd probably say, some of the things are more exploration rather than traveling. So if you're doing something, because the reason I'm making that point is I don't want people to rush off to the Congo thinking it's like a trip. Yeah. It's exploration because it's really hard, or you're going to get shot. Don't do it. Don't go to the Congo. Whether we're talking about it,
and try at your own risk.
I want to make that thing distinction, because I want to encourage people to go there, but I do want to encourage people to travel, and that's different.
Yeah.
So in terms of Nepal, I did 2 films in Nepal, one for the Monster Quest and one for Josh Gates' Expedition Unknown. And it was on Josh Gates' Expedition Unknown where I found the Yeti print.
Gotcha.
And the reason I found that, I'll tell you. So they'd asked me if I'd do a show with them in Nepal, and they asked me, the researchers and producers, they asked me where I wanted to go. And I'd been to the West. And the West is a wonderful ecosystem. Amazing things happened, over there. But there were more of a concentration around Everest at the time of sightings. And he'd already been to that area. And I said, well, let's go back to that area and do it, And so we went up to that area, and then there was this massive entourage. It was not just the crew, there were like Nepali officials and everything else. And I said, well, I want to do this tracking near where Tule, who in his Destination Truth show, had found the original print. And because I was interested in this particular area, there's also a farmer who'd seen one on the high level pastures. And I just thought it was a really good area to do a tracking. I said, but for the purposes of it, I said, I don't want this like 20 people, like in a nice way. I said, I don't want the third assistant flute player to join us on this track. Yeah.
Let's keep it limited here,
guys.
I
need to be able to hear and see and all of that stuff. So they were cool with it, and so was Josh. We don't have a problem with it. So there's me and Josh and Tule, and then there was a cameraman who were behind us, and then there was one on the other side, but away. And that was it. So there were only 3 people in a little group. And by the river there was a print, and that was as simple as that. And I feel like, obviously, these creatures are seasonal opportunists, and it was looking for frogs. It ate frogs. There's been a number of sightings of them by the riverbank eating frogs, and for the show, we ate frog as well. We ate the dude fried up some frogs, and we ate them.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
How'd that taste?
Well, I didn't get its butt, so anything else is a bonus. I got its legs. I've had some disgusting things in my time. Disgusting things.
What's the worst you've had?
Well, I can't tell you the absolute worst story because it would be banned from YouTube, okay? But
really?
Yeah, it would be. It involves a monkey pleasuring itself. It was disgusting.
Oh shoot!
So you don't want to hear that.
I don't want to hear that. No, this is back.
No.
Let's back. I don't even want to hear. No, let's just forget the question even existed.
No,
okay?
there is a thing there, but I have it. Monkey on more than one occasion.
Yeah,
it tastes like
chicken.
No,
Oh, okay. I thought you were
tastes disgusting.
Does it really?
Yeah, I'm quite a picky eater naturally.
Okay,
but I have ate some things which are hideously foul, and the reason I've ate them is because people have gone through a lot of trouble and effort to make them, and I want to respect them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I will eat that stuff, and I will be out of respect for them. I'll go, that's amazing. Really, inside, it's disgusting. I remember eating a big square of fat like that size. It had some green gloop on it in India, and I thought it was like tofu or something, you know? I thought, well, that'll be palatable. It was like a big, chunk of pork fat, like wet. And I just remember that I want to puke. In Mongolia, I ate eyeballs. And we used to call it lucky dip soup because you stay in the gas. And I was the expedition leader, and they're very hierarchical, the Mongolians. So I would be say it was your ger, your felt hut. I would be right by your side. And then, we'd serve this soup. And then, luckily there was vodka to wash it down with, which is the best thing ever. Yeah. I don't ever drink alcohol during the day. But on that occasion, I was like, I'm down with this. Yeah. Get that eyeball down my throat.
Oh my gosh.
So I've had all sorts of things, and they're hideous, and I don't like them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't change that. I don't think, okay, you know what? Now I've had eyeball maybe 15 times. Maybe I'll go back to the US, and I live in Maryville for those people. I'll go back to the US and order myself some eyeballs. No. I'll have a burger. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Some barbecue or something.
Yeah, it won't be eyeball.
Yeah.
No,
definitely.
Yeah, some barbecue.
Yeah, there's some good barbecue around here. There's some good barbecue around here.
We can't mention the names, but there is some really good barbecue.
Yeah. So I want to get into some of the stateside stuff here, but I got to ask you this because I think you're probably the first person that I've ever talked to that has this experience. What is it like working with Josh Gates and those people doing those journeys and stuff? Because I mean, on TV it looks like just an amazing time, but is that like a lot of production, or is it really like just wild adventures with Josh Gates?
Well,
answer as legally, politically correct you can.
Josh,
I'd love to have him here.
Josh, well, he probably wouldn't.
I know, he's too big.
Josh, what do you mean? Yeah, what's he saying, Jack? What's he saying?
I'm saying he doesn't live in Maryville.
Yeah, there you go. Do you see how he's smoothed in there? He's saying because he doesn't live in Maryville.
If he lived in Maryville, I bet I could.
He would come. Yeah, he would come. I'm only playing. You know what I'm doing? I'm just like busting you, Tony, for the fun of it. So, what's he like? He does his own stunts. So, like, there's a scene in the show where we abseil down a cliff. And it's actually worse in real life than it looks in the film, because it was about 12,000 feet up and tiny flecks of snow had started to fall. And me and Josh are abseiling off that cliff and we're doing it. It's not like we're like really fake. There's no fakery there. We did it. And he will do all of that stuff himself. He does it all. There's no stunt man. Josh does it all. Josh is also extremely smart.
I've gathered,
he's a smart guy and he's quick. And he was always very nice to me.
It's awesome.
So there you go.
Yeah, no, he's somebody that, like, I always loved the TV shows, and I think I've probably tried getting a hold of him like 3-4 times. And I mean, it's one of those things where you hit send on the email, and you're like, I know this is never going to get returned to me.
You might as well. What have you got to lose? You know what I mean?
I mean, that's the thing.
You've been knocking on my door constantly for like the last
and
year
you finally
or so.
came in.
Yeah. I mean, you're hiding in my garbage. I was like, Tony, don't humiliate yourself. Get yourself up.
Oh man!
But he. I mean, the thing I would say is he'd be quite demanding to work for. Let's put it like that. So he's got lots of qualities, but he'd be quite demanding to work for. You need to be on your A game all the time.
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why he's had so many TV shows. It takes a lot of work and high demand. So you're here in Tennessee. Let's actually. I got two things in my head that I definitely want to hit on. But let's start off with let's start off with the LBL, because I know you got.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, because I know you have some work coming out here early next year, and I want to hear about this because a mutual friend, Martin Groves, you and him did some stuff together. And actually, the funny thing is, I was just texting him or messaging him. He doesn't have a cell phone, but I was messaging him yesterday about coming back in studio. So next time he's here, maybe I'll bring you in too.
Yeah, please do. I like Martin. Martin's a nice guy.
Yeah,
super nice man. So I'll tell you what happened, because I think this is important. The first thing I'll say when I start saying this story is, I've been doing research all over the world, mostly on my own time and money, for decades now. Yeah, you're looking at me thinking that dude, he must only be like 30.
I was thinking 25, but yeah.
I tell you what, a smooth, like 003.5 opposite me here.
I'm just saying. I'm just being honest. You said I can't play poker. You can, hey, listen, man. And you're like, clearly.
Good. Yeah. So, but on all of these expeditions, most of the time nothing happens.
Yeah.
Nothing happens.
Yeah.
Day 56. A leaf blew in the wind. Nothing happens. I write both fiction and non-fiction. So my expedition books, they have my face on it, and that's the non-fiction. They're my expedition books.
Yeah.
The fiction books have all sorts of pictures. On average, each one of those books takes about 7 or 8 years to write.
Jeez.
Minimum, because up to 10 years with the first one, because I wanted to get enough condensed material where exciting things happen, so that it could be in. I'm going to do another one, and maybe next year I'm going to write another one. But it's been years since I did my last one. Many years. So, and I must say, I'm a little bit suspicious. If somebody goes out, I don't know, Florida, and they see a Bigfoot, then Oklahoma, they're driving along, and him and I saw a Bigfoot. Me and Betsy Sue did.
It's getting better. That accent's getting better.
I'm getting on a roll with it. But like different places, they see a Bigfoot, and then they get probed by an alien in another place, and they didn't even buy her a drink or whatever. All this stuff. Like most of the time, nothing happens, and that's it. And I'm also trying to get credible scientific evidence. I want to get that. So that's my MO.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with The Land Between the Lakes, sometimes you get drawn to a place just instinctively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And I was interested in going there. I was been interested in going there for a while. And I've got a friend called Greg Ogles, and I like to tell his little backstory just a minute, because he deserves this. The dude deserves this. So he set up his own production company. He's a really nice guy, man, a good man.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way as you're a good guy, but I like teasing you, but that's a compliment, because I only tease people I like. Yeah. So it's just the way I am. I'm always very formal and British with someone who's like a bit, You'll see it. If you see it, you see us around. But if I'm teasing them, it means I like them. So Greg's great. And before this, he'd had something really unpleasant happen to him. His son had nearly died in a car accident. I mean, it was that close. One day he woke up and he couldn't walk. Greg, not his son. He had a series of horrendous things. We were down in Texas, and Greg said to me, I'm going to do a film in The Land Between the Lakes. Do you want to be in it? And I was like, yeah, perfect, because I want to go to The Land Between the Lakes. It's great timing. This is going to go in March.
Yeah.
So Greg and I get down there a day or so before, because we wanted to find some places where we can do some good location shooting to set up the first scene. And the first scene is essentially me and an interview with me and Barton Nunnally, who's also knocks around the LBL a lot and does a lot of research there.
Kentucky guy.
Yeah, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to do a lead on to an interview with Martin. So essentially it's going to be us three doing things there. And in Greg's team, there's Brent, and Brent McGuff, I think his surname is. And Brent is a really talented cameraman, and recently he was nominated for an Emmy. He's really good. He sends up a drone, and we get a very pretty sunset, quite by chance. I mean, really beautiful. And we'd done the interviews, and we were happy. That was it. We were happy. Low expectations and things. The interviews went well. Nice, pretty sunset. Boom. But then I said to Martin, we want to do a scene really where we start the Bigfoot investigation, and then we'll kind of do our own thing as the thing flows. But to start us off, because we just got here, where's a good place where there might be Bigfoot activity? It was Bigfoot I was specifically looking for. Because I know Martin has been there a lot and he does a lot of that Dogman stuff, but I wanted to get the Bigfoot thing in first. And he says, well, I know a graveyard about an hour away from here, which is kind of on a hill. And I was like, oh, perfect. Let's start there. It's very atmospheric, graveyard at night, and we'll just go with that. So we go up there, and there's our truck, and there's another truck parked to the side, which has got the other crew in, and then there's people behind us. There were three. And I say that because it's relevant to the rest of the story. So Martin and Barton and Janice, who's the other camera woman, go up the hill because Martin wants to call these things in. He says, if I whistle, they might come. We were just still getting ready. Me and Greg and Brent were down the hill, just getting equipment out of the truck. Yeah. So we hadn't even got set up. We're just getting up and we're just going to do that. Then, and I can't exactly emulate this roar. I can't, but I'll do my best to try and give an idea. So all of a sudden we hear this, but you could tell that it came from something with a huge chest cavity. As I say, I've seen gorillas. I've seen orangs. I'm familiar with them. Yeah. And not just in the zoo. I've been in the wild with them. Yeah. I know them. And I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
And Brent, God bless him, and I understand why, he freaked. And he goes, we've got to get out of here. We've got to get out of here, Greg. And Greg grabs the back of his coat like this. And I'm glad he did grab the back of his coat.
Whose coat?
Greg grabs the back of Brent's coat.
Okay.
Because Brent's about to run. Yeah?
Gotcha.
And he's like, boom. And I'm like, I'm so glad he grabbed the back of it because the thing was roaring. And Brent's going, we've got to get out of here. We've got to get out of here. And I was like, no, I don't want to do one of those like
this is what
crappy,
we came for.
Those crappy ghost shows, like where they're like they go in the haunted house and like something goes, get out. And then they'll go, we should get out of here. And you're like, why? That's the part of the show we want to watch. Yeah. We don't care about Felicity having a freak out. We want to see the damn ghost. Bring the ghost. That's what I paid my money for. I want the ghost now.
We don't care about your safety.
Yeah. You poo your pants. You did it for the good of our
all
show.
for cinema.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad we're on the same page.
We are.
Yeah, that's it. You see, when we make films, we need somebody, we need that mentality.
Yeah, next time I'm out there and stuff, I'll make sure I pee my pants.
Yeah, well, I'll be with you in that case. We'll pee the pants.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll lose a limb, but we'll have the money shot. Me and Jack will be retired to the Bahamas. We'll be good.
Jack's already pushing the portal. Remember the conversation right before we started recording? Yeah, that one. So Jack's, he's not even on the table anymore. He's gone. He's in some other dimension.
So the thing roars, and I said, right, okay, if we form a line, like, so they formed a line behind me, and I said, I'll go first, and then we'll see what happens, yeah? Mm-hmm. So each time I took a step, you hear this, each time, and then Greg says, because he's to the left of me, he says, I can see one. And he could see one like there. He could see the crest of his head. And it's throwing rocks and sticks at us.
Are you serious?
He could see it. Yeah.
You could see it too?
No, Greg could see it because I'm here.
Right.
There's Brent, there's Greg.
Okay.
Greg sees it at the side. I'm drawn by the first one. Yeah.
So there's more than one?
Yes. This is my point.
Okay.
This is my point. So what you've got here, I feel like some sort of British colonel from the 18th century, but it's relevant to the story. So I'm going to do this. All right. So I'm going to do this. Let's do this. So
let's do it over here. That way it's on camera too.
Yes, of course. Let's do it over here.
But keep that microphone in front of you too.
Yes.
Juggle it all.
I will. Cool, he's demanding. It's demanding. So here we are. Yes. Mm-hmm. Here is the other truck where the Bigfoot is behind us. Yeah.
Okay.
And here is Martin and Barton and Janice. We are here, and here is the other Bigfoot. Okay?
Okay.
So what you have, we're moving forward. Think of it almost like a game of chess. We're moving forward in response to this thing roaring at us. And each time we move forward, this thing continues to roar. Meanwhile, we're being flanked because on this side is the true aggressor. And up here are Janice and Martin and Barton. And Janice has shouted, we can see some eye shine.
Oh.
And I realized, to my astonishment, that these things were flanking us.
Wow.
They'd drawn us in with the one in the middle and the one at the side, and we were separated as a group, which was astonishing. So what I did was I shouted out to Martin and Barton.
Barton, Martin, whatever.
Yeah, those amalgamated names. I shouted out to them, you need to come down. Yeah, like quick.
Mm-hmm.
So we could draw together as a group. And it was only when we drew together as a group that this thing backed off, and so did this.
Okay.
So what have you learned from this experience? What have I learned from this experience? First thing is, we very clearly heard those creatures. And several of the teams saw them, and they acted in direct response to my movements. They also displayed a flanking maneuver, intelligence, great intelligence. But what have they captured? So they've captured, on video, you can clearly hear this roaring. I haven't seen it yet. It's Greg's film, not mine. I'm part of it. But you can see the red eye shine 9 feet in the air.
Really?
You can see that.
Wow.
It's remarkable, and the interaction is remarkable. And there's been no film like that. No film like that. It's amazing. And so all of this happened, and all of this is going to be in the film. Yeah. So earlier, the Meadow Project is also in it. So that's the beginning of the film.
Okay.
But you have all of this happening, this intensity happening, which is amazing. I mean, amazing. Yeah. I'd never seen anything like it. It was astonishing. And it was astonishing this level of sentience and intelligence had been used. So all of this happens. Incredible. And I was like, we were amazed. We went back the next night and it felt like we were going into a battle, but I don't want to ruin the whole film for you. It was amazing. But the other thing I want to say, this last bit of this film, because this last bit of the film I've just thought was fabulous, is on the very last night, you know, I'm not going to say how much permits for The Land Between the Lake, filming permits cost, but it's not cheap. We discussed it earlier.
Yeah.
So I said to Greg, why don't we on the last night just go back to this place where we had some results before? You know, we just had those before. You know, some weird things happening. And I said, well, we've got to lose. And he said, yeah, let's do that. I get out of the car and Janice has got, I'm not as technical as you. Janice has got one of those cameras where you can see color, even though it's night. You know, you can see one of those.
Like a thermal camera?
No, not thermal. It looks like, so it's, say it's dark, you know, we see in black and white when in the dark, but it looked like we had color on and all of that. Like, yeah, it's got one of those cameras. There's a name for it, but I forget what it's called.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that. Anyway, she's got one of those, and we're looking across this area, and we see, I see these blue orbs come out, but they're not like little tiny dust particles. They're like big, like the size of fists or bigger. And there's 4 of them. And I'm looking at them and I'm describing them and then I said, Janice, and she's like, what? I said, please tell me you have got those orbs on film, because otherwise I'm going to look like a nutcase talking about blue orbs running around here and there ain't nothing there. And she said, oh yeah, I've got them. Like super confident. So what you have in this film is going to be called Cryptic Expeditions: The Land Between the Lakes. I have a public Adam Davies, it's Davies Facebook page, as well as my private one. I'll put it up on there, but because the premiere is on January the 4th and then he's going to release it. I'm not sure how he's going to release it. I'll ask him. You'll probably see him next week, so you can ask Greg yourself.
Yeah.
But
so Greg's the one releasing it?
Greg's the one, he's the producer.
Gotcha.
He's the one releasing it. But it's amazing because you have this unique Bigfoot interaction and also this other entirely separate thing. But the Bigfoot thing is gold dust, in my opinion, because I've never seen that on a film. And it happens, and it's a great interaction. So there we are.
Was it called a full spectrum camera?
I don't remember.
I feel like that's what it's called.
I mean, I guess we could Google it and find out.
Yeah, I was trying to look. I
don't know, but it sees.
It's driving me nuts because I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. No, I'll ask if you want to know. I can find out.
Yeah, but that sounds like an awesome time.
Mm-hmm.
And the land between the lakes is a place that I've heard about since I've been podcasting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And I'm very happy that I live in the same state that half of it's in. Because people don't realize it spans over Kentucky too. So fortunately, Kentucky's like the brother state of Tennessee. It's pretty much the same state. So it's just a borderline. So you had mentioned to me about how you've looked into some of these missing people cases here in East Tennessee. And one being the Dennis Martin case, the other one, Michael Herron. And Michael Herron is, the more recent one. Yeah. And that's actually like right here.
Right here. That was 2008.
Yeah. So maybe this is an opportunity for us to kind of transition maybe into a little bit of a woo-woo type topic talk, because here's the thing,
you just want to do it.
Of course I do. Love it. I will not. Listen, I had Russell Court sitting here, who's Mr. Science Guy, and I was like, no, man, we're going to talk about Bigfoot and Dogman and portals. But and you know what? I had Russell where I forget what we were talking about. I remember him just kind of looking off, and he's like, a week from now, I'll have an answer for that. But right now, I can't think of an answer to that. And I'm just like, I got him.
Well, Russell came to sail with me one time, that place in Oregon, and he had an experience there. So he's more open-minded than he
he is. I mean, he even said on the show that, and he had it canceled because him and his girl had gotten sick. But next time he's in East Tennessee, he said he's going to set 2 to 3 days aside, and we're going to go out to these areas for Dogman. And I was like, let's do it, man. Yeah. Anyway, so there's a lot of people who talk about these missing people cases, and they offer theories of UFOs to Bigfoot to portals. And I think the Michael Herron case is a very interesting case when it comes to how mysteriously he just kind of vanished.
Fascinating.
And so what got you into looking into those missing people cases, and what did you find? Or did you find anything? Did you find them?
Well, we'll talk about it. So I think I'll talk to you first about the Dennis Martin thing, because that's interesting what happened there. So, and Teresa is back in the studio now.
Yes, she is.
So there we are. So now what happened? I was interested in going to Spencefield. I was interested in the Dennis Martin case. It was supposedly a beautiful place. And I thought, I live now in East Tennessee. This is a famous case, the case of Dennis Martin. Just to set the scene for those people who don't know, he's a 6-year-old boy. I think it was in June 1969, I think, when he just disappeared, literally from under his parents' noses when they're out looking for berries up in Spencefield. And there was a massive search. I think Green Berets were involved because they got a base nearby. They train a lot in the woods there. Nobody found any trace of him. I thought that was a great mystery. I was always interested in things like that. When I lived in Britain, I worked as a prosecutor some of the time.
Really?
Yeah. And I cross-examine people. So I'm good at finding out whether people are telling the truth or not, because my job was basically to cross-examine people and find out whether they were telling me the truth.
Gotcha.
So yeah, Jack's like, oh, sugar. You promised me dinner, Jack, at the end of this. So we go up there. Teresa and I hiked up there from Cades Cove Car Park up to Spencefield and back. It's a round trip of 13 miles, and it's not a pleasant hike. It's the first hour or so is quite nice, but after that, when you're going up Boat Mountain, it sucks. You can't see anything because the banks are very high and carry on forever. And first time we went there, we enjoyed it, but we were running out of daylight. So there's a Spencefield sort of hut, and there's the actual field itself. We got to the hut, we walked around, but we weren't going to have enough daylight to get back down. So we decided we'd go up a second time, which was like 6 weeks later. So this is around August. We're going up last year. And we start climbing up, and we're climbing up, we're fine. Remember, we'd been 6 weeks before, and 6 weeks after this, just to set the scene, I climbed Mount LeConte, a charity climb, for the hospital around here, the kids with terminal cancer. It's one thing I'm interested in because of what happened to my sister.
Yeah.
So we're walking along, and Teresa passes out, or starts to pass out, and then she sees me. I said to her, I don't feel very well, or something like that, and suddenly I pass out.
So you're both
pass out in the same place on the same trail we climbed 6 weeks before. The reason I'm mentioning about the medical thing is, if it was just a medical issue, it would be strange that I had managed to climb it 6 weeks before and had no problem, and climb LeConte, which is at least around the same 6 weeks later. But I physically passed out. It's the only time I've climbed many mountains all over the world. It's not hard in terms of the things I've climbed before. It's not pleasant, but it's not hard. If you think about the stuff I did in Nepal or other places, although, I don't need to tell you my pedigree, but it wasn't. But Teresa is a nurse as well. And she was like trying to shake me awake type thing. And my eyes had gone. And I actually remember leaning over at that point thinking, as I was passing out, I was thinking, I might die here. This could be it. Boom. It was
all
really
the things you've ever done in your life, and that takes you out.
Yeah,
right.
Come been on, man. Shot at in the Congo and everything.
Jeez.
But I felt like, I'm going to tell you what I felt at the time. It was weird. But it's weird that we both had that experience at the exact same place, which is on Boat Mountain, before we actually hit Spencefield itself.
Mm.
And when we get to Spencefield, and a few people have said that, it's kind of a creepy place. It is a creepy place. It's not just, you can have that cognitive priming thing. So if the people aren't familiar with that, if I say, if I looked over to Jack and said, Barry, there's a ghost. And then at first it might sound unintelligible, but because we look for patterns, and I say, Jack, there's a ghost that's just said his name's Barry. The first time he might just hear, but as soon as I say Barry, he might well hear Barry. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be always conscious of that. And I think that's important. But there's no good, it's just unlikely that two people who are reasonably fit would pass out at exactly the same place after they'd already climbed that mountain 6 weeks before. Yeah. And then I went on to climb the other mountain. It wasn't fitness. So what is it? What happened there? And you get up to Spencefield, and it's been a very unenjoyable journey up there for all sorts of reasons. Eventually we made it again. And when you get to the field itself, it's got fabulous views, but I would suggest not really worth the effort if that's all you go for. There are many places in East Tennessee, as you know, with fabulous views.
You can drive to and you get out of your car.
Well, I like hiking, so, I like that.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do that. Yeah.
Sure.
So I just thought that was a really strange and creepy place. And then you look at the topography of where we are, where we live. You've got many caves, some of which we don't know about. And as the crow flies, from where Dennis Martin disappeared to where Mike Heron disappeared is a minimal distance, especially if you're thinking about large creatures that might be able to travel it. And so with Mike Heron, I'm still out researching. I'm going to go back to Spencefield next year. I'm still out researching the Mike Heron case. I thought that was extremely fascinating because you have a dude who's in his 50s, well thought of, no family problems. Mm-hmm. He's got a good income. He has a house here in Maryville, and he has that farm over in Happy Valley, which is, just for people who know, it's about half an hour from here, would you say, roughly?
Yeah.
So he has that.
I don't even think it's that far.
No, it's nearby.
Yeah.
So but he has both of those properties in the vicinity. Mm-hmm. And where he disappears, because you go down that road where he disappears, again, that's a weird, creepy little place, which has an abandoned barn at the end of it. Mm. But the guy was happy. He had nothing to worry about. The only medical condition he had was slightly high blood pressure, which isn't unusual for a man in his 50s.
Yeah.
His car's found abandoned with his wallet in it and his glasses and everything else. And then his ATV is found in gear.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
out of gas, right?
Yeah. And there's nothing else there. So they had that search, as you know, and I'll come on to what I think in a minute. They have that search, as you know. And I was speaking to somebody a couple of months ago who'd bought a house off one of the local cops. She said they tried so hard. Don't ever let anybody tell you that they didn't try. He had maps up in his garage at home of the area.
Really?
Yeah, because he was determined to find some evidence. No evidence is found of Mike Heron. They even had cadaver dogs up. His kids suspect foul play. There's no reason. His body disappeared. You know what I think? I think this is just a theory. I have no substance. I think he saw something. He saw something. He followed it. His head was up. He was like, yeah. And he chased it. And that thing, whatever it was, took him.
When you say saw something, do you mean like cryptozoology saw something, or saw like a bad, like a drug
I don't think
deal?
it was a bad dude because there was no money taken. Yeah. I mean, there's nowhere here there's a problem with ginseng farming, as you know.
Yeah.
But there's no capacity for that in that particular area.
Yeah. And it's also like, I mean, if he stumbled across somebody committing a crime and stuff, I mean, chances are that whoever's committing the crime and causes him harm isn't the most intelligent person to make sure that all the people who searched for him couldn't find him.
Well, exactly.
Ever.
And criminals talk. Yeah. And I don't mean this nasty, but a lot of criminals are pretty dumb, actually, if you deal with them in the justice system. You know, Sherlock Holmes would not struggle with 99.9. There's not many Professor Moriartys in the criminal world.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And I imagine they're not walking around the mountain.
Yeah.
Like the smart criminals are in like, you know, a nice office somewhere ordering people to go do the dirty work.
Media in the background.
Yeah.
No, shit. No,
They're
criminal mastermind, Tony Merkel.
Hey, I told you not to tell anybody.
Sorry,
man. You edit that out. But they're just not walking around up on top of the mountain, you know?
No.
So you say that, have you thought about the legend of the little people in this area?
Yeah, I have.
Because
I just wrote a story. So I'm going to have my next one about conspiracy theories. And Teresa's editing that right now. That's going to be out, say, like February, March or whatever. But I wrote a story about the Moon Eye people, the little people. And I'm also going to write a story about that one in books. And I'm going to call that Two Tales of Terror. I just like the sound of it.
Perfect.
So that'll be out sometime next year. But I researched the whole little people story. I love all those the Moon Eye people. There's all these stories about this area, but there's an area near where Mike Heron disappears, which I researched quite a lot. Stick up trail cameras we go to quite a lot, and I look at, and it's creepy. I mean, there was one time, and I can't really explain this. Sounds can be ambiguous, but I'm used to trees creaking in the wind. Yeah, I'm used to it. I hear them all the time. But one time, we both thought, Teresa and I, when we were out, it sounded like there was a door slammed shut, like a metal door. And I'm like, what the heck is that? A metal door slammed shut. And also...
And where was this? Up in the same area? This is
near where Heron is.
Wow.
And there's another place which we've been to, which I'm going to tomorrow, where I've heard the same noise, which is about 4 or 5 miles away. Clear, like a door, boom, like a metal door. It's like in the middle of nowhere, man. I get a lot of photographs and bear stuff and all that. But both of us, we were off trail. It's only when you go off trail, interestingly, even slightly. Yeah, when you're on trail, none of this happens. You go off trail, and there's boom, like the metal door, and I'm like, and then the vibe changes very quickly.
Do you know the theory behind the whole metal sound out there?
No, I do not.
So I don't know where this theory started, and some people are telling me that it started on my show. I don't think that's the case. I don't know, because I really don't remember. But it's been a couple of years now where I've been having people popping up on the show or in conversations, and they talk about hearing metallic sounds out in the woods, whether it's like it's sounding like a metal door slamming shut, to metal screeching sounds, but there's like this weird out of place metal sound. And my personal theory that I'm running with, let's go there. I think, is it possible that portals have a sound when they open and close?
Well, they may well have I think portals can have a technology. And I'll tell you about that thing in Oregon in a minute.
I was teeing it up for you.
Go. Look at it. That's why he's smooth. That's why he has so many listeners. Mr. Merkel seamlessly teed me up into my next story without me knowing, almost. Or did he? But yeah, so I think that it's very possible that they can have this technology. I don't know. I mean, I also think it's cool for us to say, I like having theories. But not enough people say, I don't know in this field. Yeah. So the answer to your question, the simple answer is, I don't know, but I enjoy speculating.
Yeah.
I enjoy speculating.
It's my favorite pastime.
Yes. And it is fun. So, but I've clearly heard that metal door shutting. And I've heard it very clearly and it's all within this area where Heron disappeared and also Dennis Martin. And so I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated.
So I have a friend here, Brian Jeffrey. He has a YouTube channel, Black Mass Paranormal.
Yeah, I saw the show.
Yeah.
I listened to the show I watched the show that you did with him.
He's a good dude. One of these days, all of us should just go out in the woods and get in trouble. But he and I venture into speculation as to the whole portal theory and how it could relate to Michael Heron. And, like the next best theory I have outside the portal idea is that we have, I have Siri trying to listen in on my conversation here. Go away, Siri. I just muted her. But
hey, Siri, you never know one of those things. They're creepy now. Those things.
I know.
You get a load of adverts for whatever we were talking about. Like,
for sure. But my two running theories are either a portal, and it's very logical to me, or the little people, because people were out there searching for him and nobody reported seeing giant footprints or evidence of a large creature breaking branches, running through the woods, carrying a human man. But it just seems like, from what I understand of the case, it didn't seem like he thought he was going to be in danger. Like, I mean, the fact that, his wallet, his phone, all that stuff is left behind, and he gets on a four-wheeler and just takes off. And didn't one of the neighbors on that road were the last ones to see him? Do you recall?
Yeah, they were. I mean, and he was fine. He had no problems.
Yeah.
That's why his kids suspect foul play.
But from who? That's the weirdest thing.
Well, that's it. They don't. Who would it be? It wouldn't be ginseng farmers. He had no criminal contacts or underworld. We've already confelled dismiss all that. I just think he saw something or something took it. He chased something. I think he chased something. This is just a theory. I think he chased something on the ATV. He saw it. He chased it because he was unusual. His blood was up. That was a mistake because whatever he chased decided to turn around and take him.
Or was flanked like you were.
Yeah.
And was flanked.
Yeah. Well, all of that is him being taken. But the police should have found something. The cadaver should have found something. And I know that they tried really hard. There's no police cover up in this. They wanted him found.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense. Well, let me answer your question. So I'm going to answer your question by telling you. The question is about portals.
Yes.
So I'm going to answer your question by telling you about this experience, which I'm well known for. And before we started talking, I was a bit like, oh, does he want to talk about that portal? Well, he's friendly with Where's He Will, because it irritates me a bit. The reason that this story irritates me is because I've done expeditions all over the world, as you know. I've risked my life many times, crossed unexplored jungles, been shot at, all this stuff. And the most common questions I get asked about is like a few days in Oregon. And I'm like, dude, it's a few days in Oregon. I'm like, it's like, I want someone to say, you climbed that mountain. Like, how did you do that? And it's like, tell me about them. I'm like,
So you get asked this a lot.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
really?
Oh yeah. All the time.
Wow.
No,
I deliberately told him not to tell me the story because I wanted to hear from you. I had never heard the story.
Away. So let me tell you the story.
Wow.
Because you asked me about Bigfoot research and we'll come on to that. So this is like 2014 when this happened. So it's like 10 years on from then. But this was in June 2014, I think. So I was starting to do Bigfoot research. But the whole Bigfoot research thing was a minefield. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll pick very different people in very different areas with very different opinions about Bigfoot.
You did that.
And I was in touch with Professor Todd Dissertel. I'd worked with him before. And I said, if I get any hair samples, will you analyze them? And he was like, yeah, sure. We'll do that. And I didn't really care about what people's opinions were and who liked who and all this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I just want to get some samples to see if Todd can analyze them and we come up with like the science behind it.
Yeah.
And I thought, so I picked the Olympic Project, who were more scientific based researchers. Shane Corson. Well, it was Derek Randalls who mainly run it then, but now it's Shane. And Shane's a top dude. I speak to him quite a lot.
Yep.
And then it was, I thought, well, Matthew Johnson, I thought the story sounds like crazy, but he's actually interacting with these Bigfoots because I wanted a habituator. I thought, well, if I get one of these and he has got the stuff, it should be pretty easy to get samples. So we'll find out, And I also, there was the Justin Smaher story in California.
I remember that.
Yeah, where he said he shot a Bigfoot.
What was that? Was he a hoaxer or what?
Well, I didn't really believe his story, but I did think that there was stuff potentially out there because Bart Catino was out there. He's done a lot of research, and Bart was a good. I believed he got some Fleur stuff, which was really interesting. There's a lot of bear in that area, so you got to be very careful. Like around here, there's a bear every 1.2 square miles.
They're coming in my neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I go in the woods, I always have a gun, not because I want to hunt them, which is illegal, or shoot them, which I don't want to do, but I don't want to be eaten alive by them,
Yeah. Absolutely.
But just so people know, this is an area where there are a lot of bear.
Yeah.
So I wanted to try and get some evidence, and I was also interested in the contrasting stories, and I thought for lots of different layers, this would make a good book. Yeah. A good part of one of my books. So I went to the Olympic Project, and we had a good time. Yeah. And it was really enjoyable. I did some grunts and some roars, and we got some responses. And Shane put out a voice recorder the night out in the area where we got them, and you could hear like ape-like grunting. He plays it on some of his talks now. It was great, Success. I was happy. Wonderful. Yeah, we got some interaction, some responses potentially. Shane got some different corroborative evidence. And then we were going to Matthew Johnson's, and at the time, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, don't go to this dude's place."
Yeah.
He's like off it, and I was like, I don't care. He can be as crazy as a moonbeam. I'm only going to be there 4 days. If he's come up with the goods, then that's it.
Yeah.
And my buddy John Carson, he came over from New Jersey. He wasn't really into this stuff. He had a website called The Anomalous. He was into weird stuff, but he wasn't Bigfoot. That wasn't his thing. We were just there to hang out as part of the adventure. So he met me in the Olympic Project. Well, he met me at Seattle, and we went to the Olympic Project together. We hung out for a few days there. I enjoyed it. They're nice people, and I like their methodology, the fact that they were trying to have science and doing all of that. I like that, And then we went to Matthew Johnson's, and Matthew Johnson claims, for people who know, he had this southern Oregon habituation area, SOA. I'm just going to call it SOA from now on. And he said that, he would regularly interact with Bigfoots and all of this lot. And there was a lot of controversy about it.
Well, it's because he was talking about Bigfoot being like paranormal.
Well, that as well.
Like a spiritual.
Yeah, he was. He said, I found all this evidence. And he was putting out gifting bowls for it and making assertions which were questionable anyway. So, for example, the Bigfoot must have taken the food from the bowls. Well, unless you physically see that, that's not going to happen. And in experiments after, I put cameras up and I saw deer and raccoons can undo jars. All of that, was not credible. But it was an interesting story. So we go to this area, and like, I smoked cigarettes at the time, and he had some rules which I thought were fair enough, which were no smoking except in a specific area, which makes sense, yeah? Because he had like a 24-hour clock and he had to smoke in a specific area. No alcohol, that's fine. You're doing research. I understand you don't want to party every night. And he had a rule about no fires because it drawing in. And we respected his rules and they made logical sense, yeah? I was cool with that. And then what his MO was is he had a clock. So the thing, Soa is circular. So he has a clock, and he'd say like, okay, so 12 o'clock is obviously at the top, pointing towards the woods there. You go to 3, 6, 9, you've got it. Yeah. So that's it. Now, even when we got there, John and I and Matthew Johnson, we all turned up. We got there. I said, these woods have got like creepy vibe to them, but that was just a notion. It was nothing particularly serious. But he starts playing this music, and it was like that lift music, and his thing was, I played the music to attract them and everything. And he was playing this music, and it was like, wah, 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 wah. And I was like, John, if this dude plays like this lift music for like 4 nights or whatever, I'm going to serve him up to the Bigfoot. And it's like shocking. So we were teasing him a bit, like, because he's like kind of a big, geeky, gawky dude, I know he seems all robust on the internet, but really he wasn't in real life, it's kind of awkward. And I felt a bit awkward. I was like, well, this is going to be difficult. Because he like takes us up to this, we go to 12 o'clock, and then he says, I can see, I can, sorry.
You can't say with a straight face.
No, because it was just ridiculous. I can see Bigfoots at 2 o'clock, there's a baby crawling in. And me and John would be like there, and you could see squid all, like the bushes rustling. And I was like, I'm going to swear just once. I was like, shit, this is going to be a waste of my time. I've got better things to do, man. I was on like 3 weeks in the US. I thought, I made a mistake. All those people who told me not to be here were right. I was like, oh, nights with this dude,
Yeah.
And he had these things where we slept on cots outdoors. He had another rule where you had to sleep outdoors.
Okay.
Which was kind of creepy.
So no tents?
No tents. You had to sleep on cots in a line. Yeah. Mm. So, and he had his son Grady with him as well. So nothing much is happening. And then after I think it was like the third night, we were there 4 nights, I think. It's the third. This is 10 years ago, so I'm having to recall.
Sure.
But I think it was around 11 o'clock one night where me and John are in the smoking section. And when I say section, bit of the 12 o'clock, just past it. And it's got one pathway coming in to Soa, which is, and it's not a good place to take your vehicles. There's one on the other side of these woods, but there's one pathway coming into Soa. And when you go in and out of this place, that's where your car gets wrecked, because you had your old beat up car. And I saw this beam of light, like a narrow beam of light across the pathway. And, when you're outdoors in the night, it didn't look like natural light. Like natural light's more scattered or luminous. It was a beam, like a straight beam across the pathway. I'm like, John, what's that? I said, that doesn't look natural. Where's that coming from? So we're looking around like where it's coming from and where stuff is coming from. And I said, I don't feel comfortable with that. And then we watched. And as we watched, this red glow comes out. This red glow comes out.
Out of what?
Out of nowhere. Yeah. Just like circular-ish red glow comes out. And these two things pop out of it. And they're small black creatures. And they have pinpoint red eyes, and they're stocky, yeah? They're like that, well-built, buff, but small. And they pop out. And I'm like, what is that? And John's like, they're out. And I said, and he said, I recognized them from somewhere. Like my childhood. And I said, what are those things? They're not good, whatever they are. They felt malevolent. You know what I mean? I have a feeling. Mm-hmm. They felt bad. So I go and shout, Johnson, who's already in his cot, and he sees them and he goes, you're not welcome here. You're not welcome here. He had a 45. He had a 45. I've got a 44. He had a 45. And he says, you're not welcome here, and he starts swinging it around. But then he gives me his gun and says, take care of my kid, and goes back to sleep, which is weird in itself. Yeah, totally weird. Yeah. And he'd never seen those things before.
He never saw them before?
He'd never seen them before. And then he just went back. It's kind of weird, that in itself. But he was afraid of them. Yeah, it wasn't. And
so afraid he went back to sleep?
yeah, which just doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't make sense. I can't give you an answer to that.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I've wondered about that for a while. But he'd never seen them. And I have the 45 by my side. But that was his level of involvement, really. I mean, he makes more of his level of involvement in his own accounts than happened. And then I said to John, I'm not going to go to sleep with these things knocking about. There's just no way.
Where did they go?
Well, I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
So I'm like, I'm not going to go to sleep. They're still there at this stage, yeah? They're still there, floating about like this. And they were in a red, orangey glow, yeah? So their feet were not on the ground. It was like they were in a red, orangey glow. So I'm just going to tell you this story and then I'm going to tell you what I think.
Sure.
Yeah, because it answers your portal question from earlier. So they're in this red, orangey glow. And then what I can say is right up there is one of the worst experiences of my life happens, because this is what happened next. So John, I said, I'm not going to go to sleep with those things, because Johnson had gone to sleep, which we didn't understand. And quite rightly, we found it bizarre. And you're right to say why. I do not know. Yeah. And I said, I'm not going to sleep. And then at that point, these things start rushing towards us. And I can see the anger on the one that was coming from me's face. And it's like hate. It's like hate. Nothing else but hate. And fury, because we were not going to sleep. These things wanted us to go to sleep, you can tell. And we were not going to sleep. And they were livid as heck. Livid. And this thing comes rushing towards me. And I'm like, what am I going to do here? I'm thinking about how I'm going to take it on. I thought, I'm going to die here and no one's going to know how I died. And that was what I was depressed about. I was thinking, these things are going to kill me. No one's ever going to know there was these things. You know, they're going to think some bear took him or whatever, you know. But they were that bad, that intense. And I felt terrible. So I go to kick it in the head. I thought, I'll kick it in the head. But I had my light and I shined my light to I thought, I'm going to get a good look at it. But, you know, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to fight it. And maybe I can, I mean, it's small, but it's muscular, but it's small. I'm going to do my best, you know. We'll see how this rolls. And then the moment I shone my headlight on it, it just disappeared. Just disappeared. And so did John's. And it was like they were not there. It was like they were not there. I'll just carry on the story. So, and then I'm just going to have a little break after this because I find this story quite stressful. Yeah. So we were like confused. And we like, what's happening, all this lot. And then this red thing starts gradually firing up again. And these things pop out again. And so we hit them with our torches. John obviously had a torch. Disappears like nothing's there. Yeah. This carries on all night. Boom, boom, boom. It's like we were fighting them. That's how it felt. Yeah. It felt like we had torches, which were our guns. Yeah. And these things were popping in and out. And it was, I was like, and then I sort of had this, you know, I thought, well, I'm reasonably well educated. I've got a degree in a postgrad. I've done all these explorations. I thought, I know nothing about how the world works. If these things can exist, I know nothing. So it was quite a humbling moment for me. Yeah. And I think a bit humbling, sometimes good for you, I think. So I said to John, we had one more night to roll anyway. I said, I don't want to leave. We discussed it the next day. We're talking about it. I said, I don't want to leave. I said, I want to repeat that experiment to see if it happens again a second night. We've got to. I said, because I'm forever wondering. And he agreed. You know, he was like, yeah, dude's like, what's going on? What is going on in Crazy Town? You know, what is going on? So I mean, we felt that like at that point, Matthew Johnson should have said goodbye to his son, but he insisted his son stayed another night.
How old is his son?
Well, I don't know. I can't remember exactly. No older than 14, maybe 10 to 14. So young, very young. Yeah. And then the cell phone reception is bad up in this area. It's not a real remote area. It depends what your definition of remote is. Mm-hmm. It's only about a mile or so, I think, from the nearest houses. I mean, it's in a woodland area. There's no house immediately near there. I looked at the map. Some people will say, oh, there's a house around. There isn't. It's about a mile away, but it's not. I'm not trying to make it some remote area. It's not that, no. But we stay another night and this stuff happens again.
Are you serious?
It happens again. It happens all night long. I got very good looks at these creatures. Happened all night long. And at one stage, right before dawn, on the last night we were there, it would take, I think I timed it, and it would take about 4 minutes and you couldn't get a photograph of these things because they just disappeared in the light. But I think it took about, because somebody asked why didn't we get a photograph, and I think the answer to the question I gave was we were really focused on it all. But I looked through some of my photographs when I got back from England, and there's one photograph of the path at night, and clearly I tried to take it, but these things disappear in the light. Mm-hmm. So just before daylight, because nothing happens in the day, it's only when it's dark. Oh, sorry, the night before. Yes, John was saying goodbye. Grady was saying goodnight to his mum and dad, and John jokes, "Oh, the kids just said goodbye to his mum. We're doomed." You know, it felt like a horror movie. But so normally it took 4 minutes from the formation of this, and this is relevant, formation of when you first saw this line appear to these things emerging. But just before dawn on the last night, it was like rushed, like they were really trying to get it in quick to grab us or whatever before daylight. So what did I learn from all of this? Well, Johnson then comes out with a story where they're guardians of the portal and they're all benevolent and all that. Well, they weren't benevolent. He didn't see them physically try to attack us like... Mm-hmm. The whole thing was bizarre for a start. I was like, what the heck? I came to look for Bigfoot, not this nonsense. What is this stuff? But he now says that he's some sort of council of the elders, and he's built a whole quasi-cult around it where he's on the council and he talks to these creatures and they only correspond with him apparently. And his friend built a device which is just a few bits of wood and stuff. It's crap. That is like bringing them in. And he invented this whole like story. Yeah. Like a Scientology type story where, he's like in charge of these things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's nonsense, the absolute nonsense. He works with them on the council or I can't even remember the bullshit he created around it.
Okay. Go ahead. Finish your story.
I want to finish this last bit. And then I know it's quite strange to hear this story.
I have so many questions.
But we'll have a little break and then we'll ask the question if that's all right.
Sure.
So, first of all, this was astonishing and it profoundly upset both John and I. We had long conversations about it afterwards, and I think we were both quite badly traumatized by it. I mean, I think it would be fair for me to say if he was sat here, John would say he was really badly hurt by it. Now, these things use technology, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. John is a very devout Catholic, and I absolutely respect that. And he would say they were demonic creatures. I would say I have a difference of opinion on that. Not on the circumstances and the events that happen. We have the same opinion. It's just in the analysis we have a different opinion. And the different opinion would be that he thinks about those creatures as some sort of demons. And I understand why. I think that they were interdimensional creatures. Mm-hmm. And the reason I think they were interdimensional creatures is because it required technology. It required effort for those things to get through. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember I told you it took about 4 minutes or so from my recollection for these things to form. It took physical effort, yeah, technology. And I kind of feel that those things weren't very far behind us, yeah? And I wrote a fiction book.
I saw, yeah.
Called Portals and Monsters, where I extrapolate what those things might be. Mm-hmm. Because it was cathartic for me, because we were very upset by it all. Mm-hmm. And we didn't want to talk about it. And I said, I don't want to talk about it because at the time I was working for the British government, I had top secret clearance And I was worried that might be taken away from me. Bigfoot, they were cool with, but I thought I might get into trouble if I started talking about like interdimensional aliens that I'd seen while I was in the
popping
US.
Out of portals.
Yeah, popping out of portals. I was like, these guys scrutinize every aspect of my life. Yeah. It's like, I don't want. So I said, I don't want you to talk about this to Johnson because it could damage I could lose my job and stuff. And we haven't got evidence. It's just a crazy story.
Yeah.
And it was just a crazy story. I said, we haven't got any evidence of this. I'm just going to get a load of stuff for it. I'm going to have a rotten. Oh no, I won't talk about it. And then he starts talking about it, of course, for my own good, he said, and for John's own good, bringing it out, talking about it. The dude was hardly in the picture. He sees it the first night for a few minutes, goes to bed. Second night, he's in bed all night. Well, we're battling these things, me and John. And then the new thing is they're benevolent guardians of the portal, and he's like some sort of council elder who sits with them. And I hate that story. The reason I hate that story is because it makes the whole thing seem ridiculous. It's hard enough for people to take.
Yeah.
But then when you've got this guy spinning a yarn talking about how he's a benevolent savior, then it makes it even harder. And also, it could have damaged my career at the time.
It's personal.
With it coming out. Yeah. So I was very annoyed. He's the only person you'll find me getting a bit vitriolic towards, as you can tell. Because I'm like, this dude. And also, from my point of view, I had a hard time, straight up, A, with the thing that happened, but B, with the fact that everyone's asking me about a few days in Oregon.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
did you not see that I did that?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, but we want to hear about those creatures. And it was very hard to talk about. For many years, it was very hard to talk about. You would have had to have me in a certain frame of mind, having, I don't know, bring whatever. It's like, okay, Adam, if you want, I'll say, okay, Tony, if you want to talk to me about that, let's me and you have a beer or something, and then we'll talk about it. We'll chill and all that. It's 10 years later and I'm okay talking about it, but it's still quite painful. And the last thing I'll say before I have a quick break, if I may, is there's technology involved. So to your point about these strange metal climbs, there's technology involved. I think these things, simply put, in my opinion, this has nothing to do with Bigfoot. I'm talking specifically about these creatures. In case anyone said, Davis said Bigfoot and aliens are the same thing. No, I did not.
Tony says that. Tony says
that. Said that. but I think these things from SOA are interdimensional alien creatures.
Okay.
And I think that's shocking for me. And I didn't just get a glimpse of them. It's not like I just saw, right now I saw one of Jack's sneakers and then he pulled his foot in. I saw things, just like that. Oh man, that was scary as hell.
On demand. Look at that.
Look at that. He's your Jack though, Tony.
He's my Jack. So what is going on here?
so what you have here, you have a situation where these things exist. And I think it makes a lot of sense when you talk about, and there's lots of talk about parallel universes. When I was a kid, if you did a paper on that, and I think there's too much about quantum physics. Quantum physics describes things at a quantum level, but the parallel universes is well known and well respected. So it, basically space travel, intergalactic travel, I would imagine is extremely hard. It talks about bending time and gravity and all of that lot. But interdimensional travel, I didn't feel like these things were vastly ahead of us in technology. They had their limits, but they were after us for some reason. Were they out to take us for good? Would we have just disappeared? I don't know. Were they out to do some sort of experimentation on us? Well, maybe, but I don't know, because there was this whole business of the cots had to be in a line. And at one point, there was a beam of light which struck us from a tree overhead, It all felt a little bit like...
There was a beam of light?
Yeah, very big light, John enunciates it better than I did. That came from a tree, almost like an operating thing. So I feel like they were after something, and that was almost like a giant operating theatre, and they wanted us to go to sleep because they could do what they wanted to do.
So they wanted to. So you think they wanted to abduct you?
Well, maybe
or do stuff right there.
Do stuff right there. Maybe weird. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know.
Take your bathroom break.
Okay.
Because this is so good.
See what Wes didn't want to deliberately just want to tell you the story because he knew you'd be like really into it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm like, pump the brakes, dude. I need to hear from the man himself. Wow. All right, so we're back now from break, but you mentioned earlier, and you just mentioned it again before we went live, about how people ask you about this, and I had no idea. So I had no idea that this was such a known story, but I assumed that people would be asking you about the adventures. Tell me more about how you were shot at and how you almost fell off a mountain and all that stuff.
That's what I want them to ask about.
So next time you're in studio, we're going to talk about that stuff.
That's what I want them to ask about. It's like, and I do get some questions on that, but it's only people who've read my books. And most people, the first question they'll ask me is, tell me about that. I'm like,
really? Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to dive back into it though, because we opened Pandora's box.
Yeah, and you're excited about it because you hear this story.
I'm like, yo.
It's like 2 nights, hours and hours and hours. People say, were you under the influence or anything? No alcohol. The only thing that we were smoking was cigarettes. What I was smoking was cigarettes or cigars. There was no substances. It was as clear as day, and it was as clear as night, and it was there, and it's an amazing story. But I was at the time, I was thinking, I didn't come to America for this bullshit. I wanted to do Bigfoot. Where's all this come from?
Yeah,
it was not. I did not sign on for this.
It gets weird over here, man.
I was like, I did not sign. I mean, and that's true because I've been all over the world looking for things, and like nothing ever like that ever happened to me. Ever.
Wow. So, all right, you're in the smoking section, the smoking lounge, and you see this light beam go across the path. I want to kind of rehash this with you. But what color was the light beam?
Like a white.
It was like a white
beam.
Okay,
yeah.
and
like those lighting that color.
So, but was it like a thin beam, a wide beam, very thin?
It was thin. It was thin, and it was in a line across the path.
Okay,
and it was obvious to me that it wasn't like natural. Like a beam. It was like a beam, not as wide as a torch beam, thinner than that. It's difficult to describe that the exact, but it was long and thin and white.
Okay, long, thin, and white. And from that, what happened? It was like a red.
Yeah, the red thing gradually glowed and emerged.
Was it like a shape, or was it just kind of like just an area glowing? It
felt
red?
Circular at the time, but I was more interested in the creatures.
But the creatures showed up after that.
Yeah. We were surprised. It looked misty, like a red mist. And right at the end of the thing that I should add is right at the end of the whole experience, I not the time when it went quickly, as quick as it could. I saw through the portal, and on the other side of it, I could see a tree. But it wasn't like a tree like in summer.
So it wasn't a tree that was in the woods where you were at?
No, it was on the other side. So remember, that's a good point, actually. That's a good point. So I was there in June, yeah? Where I was looking through, it looked like this really barren, arid world. And it was like deserty, like that's all my impression, because I only saw it for a few seconds. But I saw a tree, but the tree looked gnarled and twisted. It had no leaves on it.
Huh.
And I saw that very clearly through it. So on the cover of my fiction book, I got to say that because there was somebody who didn't understand the difference. You see that picture. I got somebody to draw that picture, very kindly drew that picture, and you can see the tree through it. And that's what it was, yeah?
So, there it is. I'm trying to pull up this picture so I can look at it here.
Yeah, because that's how it looked.
Okay, so almost like a desert wasteland.
Yeah. It felt like, and we're going to wildly extrapolate here, but as you can imagine,
let's have fun.
As you can imagine, I've thought about this a lot. I'll tell you what my theory on the whole thing is. It felt like they were interdimensional creatures, and they come from a world which was resource poor, and that was why they were here. For whatever reason, to use our resources in some ways. But they were not pleasant. It was like, we're going to take this, whatever it is. That's what it felt like.
So, all right. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here because I have thoughts on that. And I want to kind of have this back and forth with you.
So I'm interested in your thoughts.
For sure.
You look like you're excited with your thoughts. So I'm kind of interested.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is my wheelhouse. I love this stuff.
Okay.
So these creatures that come out, And we're just going to call them creatures. Some people, they're extraterrestrial humans, and they're our friends. I don't know. They're not our friends. I don't know about that.
They are not our friends. One thing I'm absolutely adamant on. I'm open to any conjecture on any of the rest of it, other than they were our friends. They were not our friends. They attacked me. They attacked John, and I saw the hate and vitriol on that thing's face. It was not being my friend.
Yeah. So when you saw these things, you said they had red eyes, which Bigfoot had red eyes in LBL.
It's a different thing. These eyes were pinpoints. Yeah, they were like
on these little guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like pinpoints.
Okay.
And also, you have to remember, because it's very important, because they moved, and goes to my interdimensional theory, and one of the reasons because they moved in that orange raggedy glow. Yeah. So that it was like they had an atmosphere that they were within. Yeah. So it wasn't like they weren't in like spacesuits. It was like they were almost in their own.
They were encased in their own technology.
In their own atmosphere. Yeah. In their own technology. And they didn't, they weren't physically touching the ground. They were gliding on it, you know?
Interesting. So when you saw through the portal, I just want to backtrack 1 second here.
Yeah. There's a lot of information in this.
It's tons.
It's difficult to process.
So the in the LBL, the Bigfoot eye glow thing, and I don't want to spend much time on this, but I do want to just bring up, do you perceive that as a paranormal thing or a scientific thing?
I think that, well, when you think about Bigfoot,
I think it's an interdimensional being.
You think it's an interdimensional being, and that's okay. Yeah,
I think you can definitely find them here, and they exist here in this plane. But I think that there's something weird going on.
Well, let me tell you what I think. I think that they are physical. They have to be physical.
Yeah,
they leave footprints. They we think they consume food. I don't think they have got like this. I mean, some people say, well, they land on spaceships or whatever. Like, man, they eat our stale donuts. So they come down from like Zeta Reticuli to like chow down on a stale donut. No, I don't believe that. Right. This is what I believe, you know? But I do think that there's abnormal properties about Bigfoot, which makes it very weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they also show abnormal, because there's a big question that we have to answer. Anybody who's interested in researching Bigfoot is, why isn't there a clear photograph?
Right.
There's plenty of photographs, yeah? Me, you, and Teresa are out now with cameras. We're just walking about. Technology-wise, would have been state-of-the-art 5 years ago. Yeah. I set up trail cameras all the time, yeah? Why isn't Bigfoot on them? I think that's a good question. So we have to think about that and think about hard why that is the case. So I'm not saying that Bigfoot doesn't have some odd qualities to it. I'm just saying that I don't know why, but I'm going to carry on searching. That's my opinion on Bigfoot. These creatures, I have no doubt that I'm not making a connection with Bigfoot right now. I'm saying they definitely have technology. I observe them. You know, like often people will just get a fleeting shot of Bigfoot. Yeah, I can say, well, I saw a clouded leopard, in Mongolia or whatever. I saw it, the back arse of its tail. I saw these things for hours over a couple of nights. There was no mistaking it. There's no misidentification. Someone said to me, could it have been a raccoon? It's like, come on, man. Come on. Yeah. I saw these things very clearly for hours, and I saw the description, and it was horrific. It was horrific. The whole thing played out. It was very traumatic for John and I. The whole thing played out as an extremely traumatic experience. And, and I didn't want to, one of the other reasons I didn't want to talk about it is like, how do you tell people that story?
You just did.
Well, no, 10 years ago. When I was trying to rationalize it and process it in my head, I have no problem telling it now, but it took a long time because I don't want to sit there while someone scrutinizes me and ridicules me. I don't care what Bobby not thinks, but why am I going to tell that story so some smart ass can laugh in my face? I don't need that. I didn't know. So that was why I didn't want to talk. Another reason why I didn't want to talk about it. And I can say, if Johnson hadn't talked about his own analysis of it, I probably still want to talk about it because I haven't got enough evidence to present any cogent argument as to what those things are. It's all hypotheses. So there we are. So,
what you saw through what we're kind of moving forward called the portal, because I don't know how else to describe it. What you saw through there, that tree, the barren land, do you think that is like another world or another dimension that you were looking at?
There's another world, I think, from a world. Dimensions can have worlds within them, right? So I have a parallel universe, and in that parallel universe, like, I don't know, Jack is like, behaves like Henry VIII, bosses us around as his minions, you know. Parallel universe. No, Tony's not sure whether he wants to go with that. Yeah. Jack's like super happy, but different dimensions and parallel universes exist. You know very well that we can only perceive a few of the dimensions, but we know that there are many more dimensions beyond our perception.
You ever see the TV show Stranger Things from Netflix?
I've seen some of it, yeah.
The idea of the upside down, are you familiar with that?
No.
So, like, it first of all, you should watch it. You might identify with it really a lot with what you've experienced.
Seen some. I think I saw the first series. I haven't seen the rest of it.
But there's this whole thing of like this upside down world where it's like it's similar to here, but it's different. And there's a lot of people who have had experiences where they personally feel like they've shifted into what would be called the upside down. It's not like literally everything's upside down, but it's here, but it's not here. And I've had several situations on the show where people describe such things. And the one that really kind of sticks out always is episode 512. I'm not going to rehash that story, but I will say from that story, which happened out in Joshua Tree in California, after that broadcast aired, there was another guy there were several people who had experiences in that location with this phenomena. But there was a guy who reached out and sent us the news, not articles, like videos of the news talking about him as a missing person in Joshua Tree. He went out there for a hike one weekend and he just disappeared for, I think, like 4 days. And then he reappeared in the same location that that they had already searched. And they're like, "Where were you?" And he's like, "I was here, but I wasn't here." And there's these black like cloaked beings that came up to me and were talking to me in a language I didn't understand, which does relate to episode 512. And so I the way I look at this stuff, I feel like there is these different worlds that kind of get connected like this through these portals type situations. And I'm looking at the picture of from your book and the story that you had to share. Do you think that you could have traversed realms if you would have went through that?
Yes. And people have asked me, one person asked me this question years ago, is Michael Merchant, like, would you have, you would have gone through that if, why didn't you go through it? Why didn't you?
He asked you that?
Yeah. You're an adventurer, explorer. Why didn't you go through that? And I think it was a good question. And the answer to that question is, it didn't feel right. It felt malevolent. Those creatures felt malevolent. They were up to no good with us. The anger and aggression they'd shown us, I think, like, if we dipped into their world, that would have been it.
Yeah.
We would have never come back. I'm sure of it.
It's very possible.
I'm sure we would never have come back. We didn't have the technology or ability to get back. They were certainly not going to do anything to help us. If we went in there and it didn't look like a place you wanted to hang around,
Yeah.
So I think that would have been it. We would have been the end of us. And they had their own, I didn't think this at the time. I didn't have enough cognizance of it. When I think in retrospect, they like moved in their own atmosphere, I feel, that was from their own world. And we would have not survived if we'd gone through that.
No, I tend to agree. But you mentioned about the idea of technology. And I don't know how true this is, what I'm about to say. But Jeremy Corbell, are you familiar?
Yeah.
Okay. So this whole UFO disclosure, in fact, that they were recording right now, they're holding whistleblower disclosure hearings in DC. Jeremy Corbell says that one of the UFOs that have been popping up that we have video of and pictures is these like metallic sphere looking UFOs, round metal balls. And he says, I guess he's been told by an insider or whatever, that that these things are actually drones. Actually, I think the ball, I can't remember which one it is, but it doesn't matter. It's a metallic looking thing. And he said they're from other realms, and it's technology that's being sent here because when they were sending that they're drones, they're unmanned, because when they were sending their manned craft or whatever here through these, I assume portals, we were using direct energy weapons to shoot them down. And so they started sending these drones through. And so they're just based on that, there is clearly technology involved with these things in other locations.
There has to be. And there'll be different things. So let's just expand this out. Because people don't always realize the vastness of space. They can look up at the stars occasionally and think, oh yeah, space is big. Space. We know we'll never be able to see the end of the universe, the observable universe. There are more planets in the universe than there are grains of sand on every beach in the whole world. There must be life. There must be intelligent life. Then you have the Fermi paradox saying, well, why isn't it here? They're up to things. Yeah, they must be up to stuff. Here, either we're in isolation or they already have deals. And I think that there will be different species, to do that. So these things may behave and act differently than, say, I don't know, greys, if you believe in those. They don't feel like greys. They feel like a different species.
You feel like you were in like some kind of like Star Wars movie with these different alien type creatures?
Well, it was just one type of thing. I wouldn't say a Star Wars.
But you referenced like the greys. Well, these definitely weren't greys.
No, these were not greys.
Like this was some kind of other
I see what
species.
you mean, like Moss Eisley or something. I think what it felt like, rather than Star Wars, it felt like Star Wars is essentially a Western, a space Western, isn't it? So if we put it that way, it was horrific, but it felt like we were in a battle, and it felt like we were in a battle, and the torches, if you like, were our guns or laser beams, if you like, and these things wanted to get us. And it was for 2 nights, and it's so bizarre and it's so difficult to process. John and I spent a long time talking about it, trying to understand it, and and I think you have to be comfortable with the idea that sometimes you're not always going to get answers to your questions.
Oh yeah,
because it would drive you insane.
So 2 nights, you guys have these experiences, and it's like for lack of better words, an onslaught for 2 nights.
Yeah,
and so you guys had to stay up all night long.
Yeah.
Doing this.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. And it was horrific. And it was, it was so, the first night was so bizarre that I had to do it the second night, even though I knew it might be exceedingly unpleasant, because I couldn't really process it properly. It was too hard to process.
Man.
Because it changes your whole spin on the world.
Yeah.
Like, I've always wanted to see a Bigfoot really clearly. All my life, I've wanted to see a Bigfoot really clearly. It's all I've ever wanted. All I've ever wanted was to see a Bigfoot. It wouldn't, although it would be a wonderful, amazing experience, it wouldn't change my worldview, because I already think these things exist. I'm just after gathering some evidence of them. Yeah, I have that preconceived view, and I know I do, and I'm very straight about it. These things, seeing these things, have to change your understanding of reality and what we know, because they're so obviously there.
Can't that affect your perspective though on Bigfoot and other things as well?
Well, it could, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Did this experience though open that door for you to be like, yeah, maybe Bigfoot is what Johnson's saying? Like, and I'm not here to defend Johnson. I'm just saying
no, because he creates a world, because there was a big ego around there, because that narcissistic thing. So he would never say, I don't know. let's say, like you and I have.
I am doctor.
Yeah, I am sure. yeah. And he has to become the center of the story. So although, yes, it's his location, definitely, he did invite us, and it was he'd never seen these things before, and he only saw them briefly. He did see them, and then suddenly, to rationalize it, he has to create a story where he's the centerpiece of it. on the Council of Elders, and his friend built up. He creates this story behind it, but intrinsically, in my opinion, his story is makes him special and important when he wasn't really to the story. Not being that's it. He's a character in it, but he then becomes, and only he can speak to the council, and there's all this stuff, and then they do all this healing.
Is this where it all started for him? The whole council stuff when this thing happened that night with you guys?
Yeah.
Really? So he was he just like a physical Bigfoot guy? Because I know
he wasn't. He believed in all the interdimensional stuff to some degree. I don't know exactly how much. I wasn't really interested. I was just about gathering the samples. I couldn't care. If he told me there were blue monkeys there, he would be like, okay, I just want to get a sample so we can analyze that. And then that's the end of your blue monkey story. You know, if that's what you believe, then the science is going to tell me otherwise. And that was what I was about. So my point is the story of the Council of Elders and all of that lot came after. It came after.
Interesting, because I don't know much about him, and I think he's never been on the show, and you know all that. But I feel like all I ever known and heard of the guy was this whole Council of Nine thing.
Well, that's where it all came from.
It started from
all came from. And I don't want to make too much of him because he wants to make the story about him. He'll love us talking about him. It wasn't about him. The real thing was, where did these creatures come from, and what do they want?
So when they came here, did, outside of disappearing when you hit them with light, did they seem physical?
Well, they must have been to some degree, in the sense that they were showing emotion. Why would they have that raggedy orange glow around them? You know what I mean? What's the purpose of that? If it was just like some sort of, I don't know, projection or something, why create that? There doesn't seem to be a reason for that. They seem physical. They wanted to physically do something to us, so they were rushing at us. So if they were going to attack us, that would have been physical blow. You know, the dude isn't going to pass through me; it's going to hit me. Or it felt like it was going to attack me. So yeah,
man, that's wild. Huh. So
you're going to be thinking about this a long time, I know. And
I know.
I've thought about it for so long. It's so long. That's why I wanted to get some of the other stories out first. Because I knew that if I didn't, we'd just be talking about this, because it's really hard to understand. And you know what, Tony? You'll have a lot of questions afterwards, and you can always ask me.
I will.
Because I live here. It's not difficult.
Yeah. No, it's just, so when I have talked about this on the show. What do you feel about Dogman, by the way? Yay or nay or possible?
I feel about Dogman, I think, well, I was interested in Martin's story.
Sure, yeah.
Because the reason I got interested in that is because Martin, a lot of the Dogman thing was more fringe than Bigfoot, I think it's fair to say. But
100%,
it was up and coming. So, and I was interested in why it would be up and coming. But I couldn't see an evolutionary pedigree for Dogman. You could for Bigfoot. It's entirely possible. Most scientists would say it's entirely possible that some Bigfoot-like thing could have existed, given the fact that there were so many different variants of even humans, for example. But they would say, look, it's the chances of it being in North America are extremely slim, you know, and even in the Himalayas, it's extremely slim. I think that would be the position. With Dogman, like, where does the thing come from? Now, where does the Dogman come from? What's going on there? But I listened to Martin's story, and, you know, most people know Martin's story. He was a sheriff. He discharged his weapon. Even discharging a weapon as a sheriff, you've got to account for that. That's a serious matter. Him and his friend fired. So I wanted to meet Martin and talk about it. And what I think about it is I think it's some sort of paranormal creature. I mean, it's not, I've always been the idea that all creatures are, evolutionary creatures are benevolent. Like, people say, oh, some of the habituators will say, well, Bigfoot's just good and they're all good and they live in the fields. No, that's not true. And I've experienced that for myself in the land between the lakes. That was aggression. It was trying to, the very lowest it was trying to intimidate us. At the highest it would have been something else.
Yeah.
But with Dogman, it just doesn't feel, it feels rotten. And why is it always around graveyards? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of the time, if we wanted to go and look for Dogman, you'd say, well, you know, Adam, I know this graveyard. It would be the first thing you'd say. Look, you're smiling.
Yeah,
because it's true, though, isn't it?
Where I go.
Yeah, you go to a graveyard. Yeah. And until the police worried him on from the no, they didn't know.
We did have.
Did you?
Well, we'll just let it that. But no, the reason why I bring that up is, and I'm glad you said all that, because so it sounds like you definitely leave room for the idea of the paranormal type side of these kind of interactions.
But I want, you see, with Bigfoot, I want science behind it, because I think.
But what if it's not though? Like, what if Bigfoot? What if there is not to be had science behind it as much as an open perspective of a combination of, like, yes, science, but also this new understanding of.
Well, let me approach it a different way. All right. So, in order for evidence to be, we want it corroborated and independently analyzed. All right. So, but what is science? Science is not people's enemy. Sometimes they can think of it like that. Science changes, to your point. So I agree with you. If Teresa doesn't smoke, she's over there. Yeah. If she produced a lighter and stick it in front of your face 1,000 years ago, you would have gone, it's magic. She's a witch. Let's burn her. Yeah. And stuff like that. Science evolves and changes all the time. Yeah. If you and I had turned around to Jack in Renaissance Italy and said, you know what? I'm going to come up with something real radical. The sun is not, it is the center of our planetary system. Yeah. At the center of our planetary system is the sun. Yeah. Jack would have gone, 2 witches, burn them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, that's what Galileo did not have a good time of that. That's why I mentioned Renaissance Italy. So my point is, because my first degree was in history before I did law. Today's science is yesterday's magic. And that's all we're talking about. So these things could well be analyzed and measured with science and future science and evolving science. That doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean that it's anti-science. It just means science is changing. And science has to adapt and change in response to evidence. And most breakthroughs and discoveries are made in spite of current scientific thinking, not because of it. So that's my view, if that makes sense. So the two are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they are perfectly intertwined. It's just a question of people's perceptions. So, okay, so let's you and I say, well, actually, why don't we do a Dogman investigation together, and we'll go to one of those graveyards together, because I think it'd be fun. So we say we're going to, let's do it. We'll set it up. You let me know and we'll do it. All right. Because I think that'd be fun. So we go and do that. And you get on, I don't know, Jack records something on the camera. It's really interesting. We have an analysis. That's good science. We might not be able to quantify the fact that it was a physical thing, but we're moving forward. We're moving the story forward. I think all of that is possible. I think with Dogman, I think it's something malevolent, some sort of paranormal entity, which is not good. I think sometimes bad things can leak into our world.
Did you ever see the video out of Florida? I talk about this on my show at nauseam, I feel like, but I get the sense you probably haven't. There was a video that came out, I'd say probably about 5-6 years ago. There was a guy in Florida who was outside his home taking a smoke. And he had taken pictures of some kind of shadow figure in the tree line. And he posted it on his Facebook page. And it was something standing there. And I don't know what he said as the commentary goes, but the idea was it was some kind of canine, or what was this man thing? And so the people are commenting on it. And so he decides to go on Facebook Live and show them on video where he saw this. And it's a 30-minute video, but the action happens in the first 3 minutes of the video. So in the first 3 minutes of the video, he goes outside and he's pointing over at the tree line, and it's dark out, but there's this like light post and a light shining down. And on Facebook Live, you see this upright running canine creature that looked like 10 feet tall. And it goes underneath the light. But when it runs under the light, it has a lot of translucent properties. It was like metaphysical. It was like half physical, half not physical. And he freaks out. He goes inside and he spends the next like 25 minutes talking to people that are on Facebook Live, commenting about what they all just saw together. And it's one of the more like compelling videos that I've ever seen. I want to see
that video.
I'll send it to you.
Please, because it goes to my point. Let me, I'm going to jump slightly. So one of the things I did was I went to Port Chatham. in Alaska. Can I just tell you this story?
Please, yeah.
Because it goes to that story that you just said. So I was in Vancouver Island, and I was doing something with, there was a Native American filmmaker, Victoria Vananova, and she was making a film with Tom Seward, and they were talking about how to, I don't know, the mechanics of it. So me and Stephen Major, guy, was going, and basically we sat in the bar, and he said, I've got this idea of going to this Port Chatham to look for the hairy man. Yeah, it's supposed to be this vicious killer. The story behind it is that in the 1950s, there was Bigfoot going around killing people in Alaska. Mm-hmm. And this was before they did a TV show, Alaska Killer Bigfoot. This is way before. I think they did that show on the back of our idea, after others having going. Well, it was Stephen's idea, to give him credit at the time. And he said, I want to go and investigate that thing. It takes a lot of money, but I can afford it. Will you come? Keep me alive kind of thing. I'll pay you. And I was like, yeah, A, it's a great story, and B, I'm getting paid. I'm down,
Yeah.
Getting paid. So, and his wife was on the phone saying, please take care of my Stephen. And like, she was upset, and I understand why. And I said, I'm going to take care of him. I'm getting paid, I'll keep bringing back. No, I'm not that ruthless. I was like, I'm gonna take, I'll look after him. So nobody would, like, the whole legend thing was interesting around that. So nobody would take us, like nobody. You found this one guy, and never there was a cliche born. The guy was like Robert Vaughn in Jaws, you know what I mean? He was like that. He's where there's the clashing rocks and all this lot as we're going to this place. It's quite difficult to get into the bay. And before we left, all the locals in Homer were like shaking our hands, like saying, we don't think you'll come back. And then we get to this Indian village on the way, Native American village on the way. And they like will talk to us about it, Like, we're not going to talk about that. And then, like, Stephen had got a thing saying it's like the most evil place on earth, and the Native Americans own the place. We had to get permission to go there, and they own it. And it's like you like insane going there. And there's a whole long story about it, but I want because it's relevant to your story. So when the first time, and all sorts of stuff happens interesting. Second time we went with Discovery took us as part of their Alaska Triangle series, and Larry Beans Baxter joined us for that. They'd been as well. They went, I think Stephen went 3 times. I went those 2. There's one time they couldn't go. I couldn't go because I was teaching. And you know how you do a TV show, you do a master interview, which is your main interview. And we were in, the first time I went, it was wonderful weather. I was really lucky because we were doing it on a shoestring. Nobody had been there. People had been, like from maybe, it was abandoned. It was expensive to get there. And even it was $1,000 just to get a boat one way, There's not a place easy to visit and hostile to get to. Mm-hmm. But a couple of people had been every now and again, but no one had spent the night there. We spent days there since the 1950s. The second time we went, we had a nice boat. We had money, a little bit of money. TV crew were there, and we did a master interview. And the weather was horrendous the second time we went. It must be in some sort of weather dip or something. And Stephen there's a lot of grizzlies there, a lot of them. And Stephen and I did my interview, and Stephen kept watch with the marine shotgun we had. Beans was on the other side in this building just in case they came in, because we were, we wanted to be aware in case they came in, the grizzlies. Stephen said, I can see something, or I saw something, as I came to get the shotgun off him to relieve him. He said it felt weird, and he was sick after he'd seen something moving in the bushes and I've never talked about this, actually. And he'd seen something in the bushes. He said, there's something weird in those bushes. And I was like, okay. So I got the shotgun up, and he went to do his interview, and it's like a hut that we're in. And I see something moving through the bushes, and it looked translucent. Yeah, to your point, looked translucent. And I thought, shit. And I actually put the shotgun up to shoot it because it was coming towards us at that stage. It was on the last bit of bushes before there was a gap before it gets to the hut. I think I need to shoot it now. Yeah, perfect. I'll shoot it now. And the moment I put the shotgun up, it disappeared. But I looked it up afterwards, and there are Alaskan stories of these translucent things that go around hunting people and killing them. So I just thought that was interesting because you jogged my memory about that.
Mm-hmm.
So
are you familiar with Claudia Ackley? She passed away not too long ago.
Yes, yeah. In fact, the second time I went with Russ Accord, Tosoa, Ed Brown, Dan Lindome, and this other guy, Kirk, who doesn't like to talk about thing on stage. But we did research. The last time and the third time I went to Tosoa, I went with Ed Brown and Claudia, just the three of us. Yeah, I knew Claudia very well.
You're familiar with the translucent figure that they captured on video?
I've heard. Yeah, I've never seen the video of it. She talked about it.
I think it's still on YouTube.
I'll have to have a look. I because I was friendly with Claudia, but I think any of that translucent stuff I always found quite hard to research. But I'm more up for it now.
Yeah, I'd say
I am.
Are you more up for it now because you're talking about your own portal stuff now, and you're like, okay, well, I mean, it does it give you a license to look into it more?
Well, it wasn't. Well, it took a long time to process with the SOA thing, and I didn't. But the more I do research, the more I come up with things which are anomalous, like this, in different places which are unconnected. So, like Alaska. You have that episode I've just talked to you about. And I say afterwards, him not feeling well for a long time. And then you have the Huron story, the passing out up to Spence Field, the hearing of the clanging doors. And what I'm trying to do, having been a lawyer and doing this sort of thing, a type of lawyer, is trying to put together an understanding and a hypothesis for it all. Because all of this investigation, you started off this interview saying what got you in, was always about curiosity. I'm not doing it because I want to prove to Bobby Sue anything. I'm doing it because I want answers to my own questions.
Yeah. And I think it's the best way to go about it. The pure curiosity of it,
It's what it's about, curiosity and adventure.
Yeah.
I like both. But that's always what it's been about for me. And if something happens which is anomalous, and again, I say to people, decades and decades of doing these things have happened to me years apart, years and years apart.
Yeah.
It's not like Tuesday I saw these creatures, and then on Wednesday,
Did it drive you more? I mean, like when you have interaction like that, does it drive you more to get out there? It excites
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like tomorrow I'll be going out to that area where I heard the clanging door sound, and that excites me. I'll set up some trail cameras, do whatever, but it excites me.
Do you go during the day, nighttime? What are you thinking?
Well, both. Normally during the day. I like exploring nature, so I like going out there.
Where you can actually see it.
Yeah. I like going out there exploring, and that's what I'm doing tomorrow,
That's really cool. I'm
always out doing this stuff, Tony. You're always welcome, so's Jack.
Yeah. I
want to do that Dogman thing with you. I want to go there. I think that'll be excellent.
Oh, heck yeah.
Got to do that.
Let me ask you, and I hate to go back because I know you hate talking about it, but
well, I came prepared to talk for it.
Okay, good.
I mean, Wes last nicely set it up by saying, get him to tell you that story, and you didn't, to your credit, do any research on it, which I might have been tempted to do. So you're hearing it fresh, which is all good.
I that's a big practice of mine.
And you're hearing stuff that I haven't talked about before, which is all good.
I appreciate that because I just I like just having real organic
That's
conversation.
Much better, yeah.
So did they make any sounds?
Well, the creatures.
Could you hear them?
No.
Okay. No. So it was a lot of action, no sound.
No sound.
Okay.
That I recall.
And you mentioned about where you're going tomorrow. You didn't hear any sound with the portal that opened up? There was no sound with that?
No sound at all.
Okay.
I mean, I would love to have said, because it would have been consistent.
Oh, yeah, been perfect. I knew it, the metal sound.
Yeah, we heard the metal sound when the thing opened up.
Yeah.
We heard it, but we didn't.
Okay.
I can only tell you what happened. I don't want it to fit. I don't want ever to be tried to fit patterns.
I totally get it. This is wild stuff, though. I think if you look at the Claudia Akla video, which I just found, I'm pretty sure I found it, so I'll send it to you.
Send it to me.
And then
I should have seen that really because I was friendly with her.
Yeah.
Maybe I've seen it and forgotten, but I don't think so.
What's interesting, if I remember correctly, about
is that the one where she's in the woods with Barb Shoop?
Yep.
Yes, I have seen
Barb and Gabby, right?
Yes. Because I would have called it, just from that thing, I would have called it Barb Shoop's video. That was why I wasn't making the connection. You're calling it Claudia's video, but it's the same video.
Yeah.
That's difficult to explain.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to explain.
Especially with the fact that she says she saw something black and hairy, but the video picks up a translucent movement.
That translucent thing's hard to understand.
Yeah.
And nobody's been effectively able to debunk it. They've put forward theories as to what it might be.
Yeah.
But none of them seem to hold much gravitas to me right now.
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's very weird. Yeah. So between that video and the Florida guy, check it out.
I haven't seen the Florida guy.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I'd like to see that, but I have seen the one with Claudia and Barb Shoop many times because that's in Barb Shoop's research area in Washington.
Yeah. Well, listen, this is awesome. This was awesome. And I think we've probably gone for almost 3 hours. So,
oh gosh, it's been quick though.
I know.
Teresa said to me, you know what, you'll sit down with Tony and it'll go so quick and you'll be cool, because he's like your type of guy. And I was like, yeah, he's right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming in.
No, my pleasure.
Before we get out of here, though, I mean, tell people where they can get your books and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anything you want to promote?
Yeah, thank you. So I have an Adam Davies website, a public Facebook page as well. So it's DAVIES, Adam Davies Explorer, or Adam Davies on my public Facebook. So I have two Facebooks, but my public one is where I put my research, really. I try and put nonsense on the private one.
Like Portal Talk.
And then I have books. If it's my expedition books, they have my face on them to differentiate from my fiction. There's Extreme Expeditions 1, 2, and 3. And I also have novels. And they have, we talked about portals and monsters. There's actually one called Monsters in Maryville. Yeah?
Really?
Yeah. Which is set around here.
Nice.
Yeah, set around here. Monsters in Maryville. And I have new books coming out. The next one will be on conspiracy theories in March, and then you'll get those other stories later on.
So before we wrap this up, you've said it several times, and I didn't realize, but so you go down the conspiracy hole too, huh?
Well, I researched it all for the book because I was fascinated by it. Because
what conspiracy? Is it just a bunch of them, or what?
There's a few I particularly like. I like the sinister figures like the Hat Man and where they might come. And I'm fascinated by back rooms. I love this liminal space that makes you feel vaguely uncomfortable. So there's a few I'm interested in. Interesting.
The Hat Man, me and my wife were just talking about it yesterday because normal people talk about Hat Man. We're finding a pattern, and I think it's okay to say this. We're finding a pattern with people's encounters. Where some have been on the show, some have not been. Where people are encountering some are calling it a winged demon. Some of them are calling it a winged humanoid. Often described with bat-like wings for visual. And before they see the wings, they see a man standing there in a trench coat and a top hat or some kind of fedora.
There's some very weird stuff to some of these things. I will not name him and I will never would, but there's a very respected scientist I know who saw one of those things.
Which, the Hat Man?
The sort of quasi-Mothman type Alman creature. He saw it clear as day.
Really?
And to this day, it haunts him. He can never talk about it because it destroys his career. But so what you have are these things. But what you also have is science gradually shifting towards trying to understand them and think about how they might exist and do all of that. And I think that's consistent with science changing and moving and evolving.
So there's because her and I continued this conversation in text, and I had to pull it up here. There's a Central American god called Kamazotz. I don't know.
Kamazotl.
I know it's Camazotz.
Okay.
And it is almost identical to the description of what people are saying they're seeing as a winged humanoid coming and haunting them. And the new season of Stranger Things, one of the episodes, the title is something to do with that god and is like escaping it from the underground. And apparently it says here, whatever that name is, I'm not going to try again, is Central American god, a giant metamorphic bat deity representing death and sacrifice who presides over the underworld. He will fly out of a cave and kill his victims. One legend features two brothers who wanted to defeat him, and they had to go into the caves and perform trials of strength to defeat him. And we've heard that ad nauseum on the show. People having to go into the underworld upside down.
Do something.
Yeah.
Well, the point I'd make about that, and I know we're running out of time, but the point I'd make is, if you look at the history of these sort of things, you used to have this Platonic view of the universe where there were spirits and elementals and other type of creatures, and people were comfortable with that. And then you had this idea, and then you have this idea where the Victorians came along and said, in the Victorian era, I remember there's a famous quote, all science is known, and the science rejects all of that, yeah? And it was almost like an adverse reaction to that. I think now what you start to see more is, well, actually these things may or do exist, be they Mothman or ghosts or something like that, or the Dogman. It's not just crazies that see them. It's not just misidentification of bear. There's something possibly there. So how do we rationalize these things? How do we explain them? And I feel like you see, because the idea of, parallel universes, as I said, if you'd written a scientific paper in physics and you said that parallel universes exist as an undergraduate 20 years ago, you wouldn't have even got your degree, yeah? Now it's mainstream science, yeah? Now we've seen that teleportation, albeit of particles, is possible, in fact does occur. We've actually seen, and we don't understand how observation alone changes the behavior of atoms. All of these things are developing, and I think we're seeing more of emergence towards this, consulting a number of scientists I work with, trying to understand it. There's still a bit of fear. But it's moving towards understanding. And it's almost like, well, some of those Platonic elements had some substance to them. Yeah. Without going, it's Philosophy Corner with Tony and Adam. But
Yeah. No, I love it all. I appreciate you coming out.
My pleasure.
This is awesome.
Oh, yeah. Watch that glow. Something's coming through, and it ain't for show. You ready, Adam? Let's break it down. Walking through the woods late at night, saw a beam of light cutting sharp and white. Red mist rising got me on edge. Then two black creatures came through the ledge. They weren't walking, they were gliding smooth, with pinpoint eyes and a mean attitude. Felt their hate, it was cold and raw. Time to stand my ground, time to drop some jaw. Portal funk gets out of sight, creatures coming through in the dead of night. Red glow, black form so tight, dancing with the unknown, gotta fight that fight. Flash my light and they disappear, but they come right back and they're bringing fear. Hovering close, wrapped in orange haze, moving like shadows from another phase. Tried to rush me, but I held my ground, shining that beam, making them rebound. 2 nights straight, man, they tried to take me, but the funk in my soul said, you can't break me. Portal funk gets out of sight, creatures coming through in the dead of night. Red glow, black form so tight, dancing with the unknown, gotta fight that fight. Through the portal frame, a barren land where the air's insane. Twisted trees, no leaves, no life, felt like stepping in a cosmic knife. There ain't no friends they're looking to harm, but I ain't going out without my funky charm. Flash the light, make them scatter and shake. In the portal funk, you gotta keep awake. Portal funk gets out of sight, creatures coming through in the dead of night. Red glow, black form so tight, dancing with the unknown, gotta fight that fight. Through the portal, yeah. Black forms rising, they ain't playing fair. Portal funk, can you feel that sound? Hold your light up, keep your feet on the ground. Stay funky, stay brave. Don't let that portal